We've done it. We did it. We did it. We're here. We made it. We made it. How you doing, buddy? My little pug over there licking his chops because he just had some good peanut butter, didn't you, buddy? Didn't you, buddy? The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. I can't even drink away my blues inside a bar. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Hey, Eric, Famita, Bubble Guppy, how you doing, bud? How you doing? Yeah, I mean, we got the new federal polling data, right? Basically, you got 30% of the country saying, let's destroy the place. There is no problem. In fact, let's just drive straight towards the apocalypse as fast as we possibly can. And then you've got another 30% basically being like, well, no, there's a problem. We're not going to do anything about it. We're going to pretend to do something about it. It is really paradoxical that to make life better, you have to stare at the horror in order to know what to do and where to go from here. I mean, there was a brilliant artist by the name of Thomas Highway here in Canada. He wrote a play called Dry Lips Ought to Move to Kapasanking. It's about the reserve system here in Canada. It's a First Nations play, written by a First Nations author. And when he would put the play on for white audiences, they would get very upset about it and say, well, this seems very racist and it seems very dismissive of First Nations culture. But of course, when he would play for First Nations audiences, their responses were very much like, that is how it is. And that you're shining a light on the tragedy of the modern reserve system, the realities of the modern reserve system. And we were children, if you like that play so much. Thanks, Famita. Good tip. And Highway's statement for why he felt the need to make this play, Dry Lips Ought to Move to Kapasanking, was that if you want to extract the venom, you have to show the venom. You have to reveal it. You have to expose the venom. And until you expose the venom, you can never extract it. And using this analogy, we've got one party who refuses to acknowledge that there's venom whatsoever, and another who acknowledges that there's venom, but is just trying to sell you things in order to live with the venom while the venom kills you. That's the position that we're in. William Mason, I don't know if I've ever seen you around here, bud. Good to see you. Ring of Fire has a kind of funny story. Scientists gluing themselves to a government building to protest fossil fuel. We took a look at that yesterday, William. It was a German protest, if I'm not mistaken, where they were gluing themselves to government buildings and streets. And I mean, this is what we're going to have to do. Like we don't have a choice any longer. Like the choice is full scale rebellion. Like we're ruled by psychopaths who have detached from reality, and a media culture that, oh, that's fine for me to, let's go. let's fucking go, man. Just a little drunk? Just a little drunk? You know, my consciousness is telling me to play this one, so I will. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm old? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy. Wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes and sweeps me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat, and Antarctica is covered in ice. Everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? When everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat, and Antarctica is covered in ice. Antarctica is covered in Hey Major, how you doing, bud? Grinning, good to see you, Methane. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Why use more word when less word easier? Oh, so we're cutting onions again, all right. Yeah, that's right. So it's just a little bit of rain. Don't worry about it. So long as using less words isn't because of forced newspeak, I wish I were more concise. You learn to be concise when your professors talk fast. Well, I mean, there is like the whole shorthand, right? Like when you're note taking, you're doing like shorthand stuff. So, as you can see, I got a ton of tabs. We are gonna do just like a zip through these because a lot of them are just headlines, right? Like we're getting to the point now where like the culture is realizing it's being abandoned. Like it's becoming more and more apparent, and we're starting to see pretty major institutions are beginning to turn the corner. That like the boomers die eventually, right? Here's your boomers, right? They die eventually, and if all you've done is completely, utterly betray the generations coming up, well, then they're going to ignore you. And so the culture is starting to realize this, and is starting to turn the corner a little bit. And also, I think there is a good degree of, some of the psychopaths are beginning to realize that, oh, wait, we are going to get fucked over too because of climate change, right? So there's like a base survivalism. Your eyes are sweating, John. Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do. That's my contribution to all of this. Make people feel. Make people feel. Right? We're a numb, dead culture. Like, in my view, this is why there's so much cruelty in the society right now. That the only real outlets we're using to pursue the only emotions that we are encouraged to have are triumphant victory. Those are your Marvel Drek movies, right? Basically all of the movies that you watch. And laughter, right? So stand-up comedians and all of this. Which, of course, and I'm not saying this as a negative critique of stand-up, but it's the reality, is that much of stand-up comedy is laughing at the misfortune of others, right? It's like one of the major outlets and one of the major aspects of comedy, right? Is that you're laughing at the misfortune of others. But there really isn't anything in our media that is attempting to really make you feel in a way that makes you cry. Like the statement is, well, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Well, we need a cry. We need a good cry as a people. We've gone through traumas. We've gone through massive traumas as a people, and we're inflicting traumas not only on other countries, but we're inflicting those traumas on our own children, and the abandonment of the next generation is like we need to grieve. And here in Toronto, like I can see it. Like all of the open mic nights that exist are for comedy. Everybody wants comedy right now. Like everybody wants to just laugh and escape, right? And there's literally no open mic nights for music. It literally doesn't exist. Shrooms would save us. Mandatory 5G trips for all adults. Great shadow work. Yeah, good luck trying to make something like that mandatory, Grinning. You literally can't say to people, hey, you should wear a piece of cloth over your face amidst a pandemic. Drug the population so they're too unaware to collectivize? No thanks. I love that you're correcting your own grammar, Famita. Like, I'm sitting here being like, oh, you said there instead of there, and so it's invalid. Well, I mean, Gen X, if you ask me, Gen X has been traumatized in a very specific kind of a way, right? Like, unlike the boomers, Gen X is aware of sort of the duplicitousness of what it is that is happening. But they've been forced to come to a place where they have to buy in, right? And many of them did buy in. Well, and because they didn't have an alternative, right? Like and that's all Gen X has ever done is just like bought in to this dead culture that is leading to, like, there's a reason why you have like the grunge movement and a big revolutionary spirit that happens throughout the 90s, right? There's a reason why that happens, because it's Gen X expressing this kind of, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage, right? That kind of thing. Like, sort of the expression of the suburban hellscape, like all of that. And and it's the inescapability of it that Gen X really talks about a lot, because they know they're overwhelmed. Like they literally have no outlet to fight back against this generation of psychos, right? And this generation that's literally saying, let's destroy the planet, let's destroy the species, let's just destroy everything, eat as much as we can, consume as much as we can. And for Gen X, I think it's literally like, okay, like, try to do your best. And now the wheel is turning, right? And so the boomers are dying off. And now you've got this Gen X group, but all they've ever done is this. It's literally all they've ever done. And I think many of the Gen X people are just going to be like, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I've sold my entire life out to this death cult. Just let me die in peace. I think that's what a lot of them are going to say. And I get that sense from the millennials as well. Not to like absolve the millennial generation of all of this. Like, millennials are starting to become like late 30s. Like, I'm one of the oldest millennials. I'm like right on the cusp. It could be argued that I'm actually in the previous generation, but so I'm like on the cusp. And I see in the millennials kind of just like a suicidal acceptance. Just like a bowing of the head, like let's just bring this on, right? Let's just collapse this thing, right? That there's it's beyond apathy, right? It's beyond apathy. It's a capitulation to not only the death cult but to the call of the void. No, and you're right, Bumble. I know you're right. Like, I do think that, like, be mindful of that. The boomers are human, but a product of the existing system. The same one that has the millennials rooting for NATO right now. Yeah, the DSA is sending weapons to Ukraine for Pete's sake. No, you're right. You are right. Like I'm actually very sympathetic to the boomers as like when we talk about trauma, like when we talk about people who have experienced massive trauma, like the boomers have experienced a trauma that I think that we don't really understand, right? That the trauma of being like the first generation to be bombarded with film and television propaganda, like that's a that's a very tough hurdle to overcome, right? And you are right. Like the millennials rooting for NATO right now. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's so crazy to me that we're doing everything we can to destroy this place. And ultimately, like, and Bumble, you're right to remind me of this. Like, it's not necessarily good to have the generational conversation, right? Like that we need to focus on the class basis of it. That a poor boomer and a poor millennial and a poor Gen Z and a poor Gen X have much more in common with each other than a wealthy boomer, millennial, Gen X, right? Like that the true distinction in the society is not generational, but class. That and it's important to kind of keep the conversation like that, I think. But at the same time, I don't know the generational conversation is interesting because there's uh, like events that occur to a group of people and and they're traumatized by it and then they pass that trauma down. But at the same time, I do think like the boomers produced like the Beatles, right, and the free love movement, right, like that's what's kind of wild to me about when I think about the boomers and their kind of experience. Like they had like a whole free love movement, Woodstock, like the civil rights movement, like this huge like upswell of revolutionary power, and it just you would think that the generation that was embroiled in all of that would also be attempting to spearhead a similar kind of revolutionary spirit. And I mean, I guess you do see it. Like the January 6th insurrection was something of a revolutionary spirit. I mean, not something of, it was. Anyhow, I want to keep it on climate change because. Get out of here. Get out of here. This young lady, who we all watched that video of, right? I did several videos. She wrote an article in The Guardian. I went on TV to explain Just Stop Oil, and it became a parody of Don't Look Up. Miranda Wellahan. I hadn't seen the 2021 satirical film Don't Look Up, and I went on Good Morning Britain on Tuesday. I was there on behalf of Just Stop Oil, a group that had been engaging in direct action by blockading oil terminals. We're demanding that the UK government ends all new oil licenses, exploration, and consent in the North Sea. It's a simple message that's in line with the science. But the simplicity of our demands seemed to annoy my interviewer, Richard Madeley. But you'd accept, wouldn't you, that it's a very complicated discussion to be had, a very complicated thing, he said. And this Just Stop Oil slogan is very playgroundish, isn't it? It's very Vicky Pollard, quite childish. I then proceeded to talk about the recent report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, which confirmed that it is now or never to avoid climate catastrophe. But they didn't seem to care. People were quick to point out the parallels with a key scene in Don't Look Up, when Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence's characters, both astronomers, go on a morning talk show to inform the public about a comet that's heading to Earth, potentially leading to an extinction-level event. The newsreaders don't care about what they have to say. They prefer to keep the bad news light. Now that I've watched the film, I understand the references people have been making. The worst part is that these presenters and journalists think they know better than chief scientists or academics who have been studying the climate crisis for decades, and they refuse to hear otherwise. It is willful blindness and is going to kill us. The response to the interview on social media has been very supportive, but we need to translate that support into action. If the thousands of people on Twitter who disagree with Madaley's approach joined the actions of Just Stop Oil, the possibilities for change would be endless. When the interview finished, I tried to speak more to Ranveer Singh and Madaley to stress how serious this is. Madaley just told me to be quiet and watched the weather presenter. My fear is that they will only understand the reality of the climate crisis when it is on the doorstep, perhaps when the floodwater is uncontrollably trickling into their homes, or when they can no longer find food in the supermarkets. Maybe then the brutal reality of losing a livable planet, maybe then the brutal reality of losing a livable planet means would actually sink in. Maybe then the journalists, presenters, and climate delayers would think, oh, maybe we should have listened, done something, and of course it will be too late. Given the government's inaction, which I believe will be judged as criminal in the near future, there are no longer any options left than to take clear, direct action in the form of civil resistance. Some of my best friends are now preparing for their next action. This will be their 4th in 12 days, perhaps also leading to their 4th time sleeping in a police cell. They are between 20 and 23. They have degrees and jobs. They should be enjoying their final weeks at university and preparing to celebrate their graduation. Instead, they are putting their bodies in the way to grind the distribution of oil to a halt. No matter what the government or the media say, these are good people who are terrified for their future. They are refusing to just sit by while their government pours more fuel on their dreams and lets them go up in smoke. Civil resistance is not really about protests or marches. It is about responding to a situation beyond our worst nightmares. At COP26, the people who run things effectively confirmed that they were going to let billions of the poorest people on this planet die in order to keep business as usual going. Well, to that we say no. We will not continue as generations have before and allow our actions today to have devastating consequences on those tomorrow. It is time to break that cycle and stand up for what is right. If government is serious about climate change and climate crises, there can be no new investments in oil, gas, and coal from this year. That is a direct quote from Faith Birol, Executive Director of the International Emergency Agency. He said that last year. Time has quite literally run out. It only takes one quick search on the internet to see what is happening. Somalia, Madagascar, Yemen, Australia, Canada. The climate crisis is destroying lives already and will continue to until we make a commitment to stop oil now. Yeah, exactly. Gotta love the gas company ad showing up while John reads it, right? Like, how dystopian can you get, right? Like, we are ruled by psychopaths. Like, it's important to always remember it. Like, never forget it. Like, literally, these people have no shame. They're incapable of shame. Like, yeah, read that yesterday. Good to see you, JR. Hard not to shed tears when you can tell the anger and disgust in the activist writer's words. Yeah. And, like, the number one type of comment that comes around on the stuff that I post on the internet, and it's getting to be predictable now, so predictable that I'm starting to think that it is just a bot, but it's just the literal, like, shrug and get on with it. Like, that's literally what's being said now. That we're supposed to just ignore it, get a job, right? This kind of psychopathic, just like, yeah, just let the Germans take over. Just like, yeah, so what? The Nazis attacked the Soviet Union. They should have, right? Like, this is where our culture is heading. Mocked, good to see you, bud. Metroid or some other, or Meteoroid or some other extraterrestrial event is going to happen this year. They say that literally every year. Bring it on. Let's go. I couldn't even play FPS games on shrooms. I was just saying, how's this even fun? Yeah. No, because like mushrooms connect you to reality in a very intrinsic sort of a way. And so all of the distractionary stuff, like it's difficult to take mushrooms and then attempt to step into another alternate reality because mushrooms won't take that trip with you. Like they won't go on that trip. They're taking you on their own trip, right? And if you do like a low dose of mushrooms, it kind of shows up and is just like a buddy that's walking around with you for a little while. And so like the clouds are sharper, the natural world itself seems to be reaching out more. It's more apparent. Our brutality towards the natural world is more obvious. Because it is like the earth manifests like a spirit or a personality that you carry around with yourself when you do mushrooms. And then of course the more mushrooms you do, the more your own personality is replaced with and I'm using the word personality as if it is like a person, but like that's kind of the feeling of it. And the more the heavier dose you do of mushrooms, the more your personality will be wiped away, and the personality of the natural world and the natural system will take over, right? And like if you do like a really, really like blackout level dose, right? Then you like go into your own consciousness, and then you're literally having a conversation with your own subconscious, or you're being presented with things from your own subconscious. I don't know if I recommend it, honestly. Like unless you really like when I was introduced to psychedelics, I was introduced by someone who I came to understand was duplicitous, was using psychedelics as a way to manipulate others and abuse others while they were on psychedelics. And so anytime I interact with psychedelics, I kind of have to get through that aspect of it and realize that that's just that person that doesn't speak to the psychedelics. And unless you are dead sure that you should absolutely have this like profound style experience of like having a lot of mushrooms or LSD or any of that kind of stuff, to the level of like blacking out, to the level of like just retreating into your own consciousness, right? Unless you're dead certain that that's what you should do, then I recommend just sticking with low doses, right? Like maintain a certain degree of sobriety, and if you do feel like you need to take that larger trip, or if you're curious enough, right? And I think it's fine. Have someone around you who is sober while you do it, right? Have someone around you who's sober while you do it and who is only there for your safety, because while you are on a psychedelic trip, you are heavily suggestible and heavily manipulatable, right? And bad actors can mess with you in pretty significant ways. And so I highly recommend, if you are going to do that, have like a sitter, have somebody who's like actually interested in your own personal well-being to be involved. That's my suggestion. I must be drug resistant or something. Shrooms are okay, but never get fun visuals. Different thoughts, but I always expected more. You might, honestly, Methane, you might just be like not having enough, or what is it? What's the process? Like, are you literally just eating them? Like, what's the process? The best way to do mushrooms, in my view, is to make a tea. Is to just steep them for about 10 minutes and then just slug the whole thing. Right? That way you get everything. But if you're like just popping it in and chewing it, right? Well, it like, this is an acid vat. Like, it'll just destroy it. Take all property away from people who think they could survive climate change. If they can survive, then why not with nothing? Yeah. Sometimes I think about how easier it would be if some aliens made contact, see the personification of apoptosis, capitalists, and rightly fixes things. Nah, aliens are not going to get involved in our shit. Like, why would they? What a pain in the ass. An alien species that is capable of interstellar flight to the degree that we are talking about would view us like a pet. That would be the nature of the relationship. And even if they loved us, even if they were looking at us and they thought that we were great and they wanted nothing but the best for us, and they thought that, oh, there's so much that we could teach them and there's so much that they could learn, and oh my goodness, what a great, and so on and so forth. Like, the relationship that we would have with them would be as like a pet at best. And honestly, I look at aliens and I'm just like, they have zero, like, why would they ever interact with us meaningfully? Like, the only way that they would actually interact with us in any kind of significant way would be if they were threatened by us. That's the only time that I think that they would open up some kind of negotiations or open up some kind of communication or have some kind of actual contact that would be real or genuine in any kind of serious way. Because, like, if I'm looking at, like, if I'm an alien species looking down at this planet, like, I'm literally just like, oh, these guys are just going to destroy themselves. Like, we absolutely do not want them to even know that we exist. Like, the last thing we need is a psychotic planet forming up and funneling all its resources into a missile to shoot at us. Just look at our movies. Like, look at the way that we view alien species. Look at the way that we view, like, even our good stuff, even the stuff where we're trying to be good. Like Star Trek The Next Generation, right? Like, the emblematic thing that somebody would say to be like, no, we're trying to make good with the alien species and all the rest of the world, right? Well, look at how we present the aliens even in, like, a Star Trekian kind of a sense, right? So they're either emotionless creatures or creatures that are so unable to control their emotional states that they literally need to become like monks, right? Like, these are the Vulcans, right? The space aliens that we like, right, are so incapable of maintaining their emotional state that they have to deplete themselves of it, right? What else you got, right? You got a warrior race of just, like, rapacious fighters, just like a bloodthirsty culture that's constantly in a state of total war. Of course, they're black, right? You've got the space Jews. Let's not forget about the Ferengi, right? Like, obviously space Jews. Just like conniving, sniveling capitalists who are always backstabbing and scheming to the degree to the degree that in Deep Space Nine they literally say, like, we've run out of business opportunities because no one will do business with us because they know what we are. Like, what else is there? The Romulans, just like suspicious, spying, constantly undercutting, sneaky, duplicitous, untrustworthy. I keep wanting to say Kardashians, but that's wrong. Oh my God, it's not the Kardashians. Anyway, the Kardashians, which are like a snake creature, right? A snake species, like a warrior culture that enslaves everything around it. Like, these are the Star Trek, the Borg, right? Like these are the Star Trek aliens. And every episode of Star Trek The Next Generation ends with the humans making the right decision and everything being resolved correctly because humans, right? Like, it's so egocentric. It's so, like, humans are the greatest and all of these other inferior alien species just need to acknowledge our greatness, right? It's like, I'm an alien species looking at the shit that we're generating about the world around us, and I'm just like, do not open channels of communication with these guys. Like, these fucking monkeys are going to destroy themselves. Like, they're certainly going to take us down with them. Like, no. So, like, and really, I do think that if it comes down to it, like, the aliens, like, they are going to make a decision. If there's an alien species that exists and is looking at us, they're deciding whether or not they should remove our atmosphere or not. Like, that's always the question. for them. Because the only reason they are interested in us is as if we are a threat to them. That's it. So they're not going to come down here and fix shit. They're just going to wipe us out if we start to build rockets to shoot at them the way that we always have and do. Like, we're not peaceful. What if the aliens recognize the error in capitalist brains and just fix the neural connections to empathy and such? Wouldn't that be great? Posted a very upsetting TikTok that would make me believe. That would make me believe in God, Bumble. No kidding. Oh, is there something different with me? For sure. Is it wrong? I don't know. Am I dangerous? Nah. Yeah. This rise of the idea of like neurodivergent is interesting to me because it kind of pretends like there's a normal. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I've always felt about it. Like, I understand that we're just trying to understand things, right? We're trying to understand things. We're just trying to create language in order to try to understand, like, what is going on with certain types of people. Like autism, for example, right? Like I've encountered autistic people who seem very functional, very existing in the world, like all of that kind of stuff. But like, I would talk to my dad, and Dad would always just be like, "Yeah, like we didn't have a word, like we didn't have the language. We just were like, yeah, it's just that's Bill, like that's just how he is." Right? And you just, there you go. There's something going on with Bill. We don't know what it is. And so now we've given it like a name. And yeah, you know, I don't go any deeper than that. I do think that people tend to, and I mean, I think humans do this naturally, but we tend to weaponize this kind of language in order to inflict other people with it, in order to diminish their presence or put them in their place. Right? That, oh, you can just ignore what this person has to say because they are X or Y, right? And that us normals, us normies, right? We can just get on with our lives. We don't need to listen to what these guys have to say. I tried to get diagnosed a few years ago. They didn't seem to want to. They claimed depression, anxiety. They said maybe ADHD. I probably have ADHD. I think that's probably right. I watched a documentary once on a neurologist researcher who studied psychopathy with MRIs and looked at one and thought, this guy's a psychopath, and it was his MRI. I remember this. Yeah, that's a pretty that's a pretty fun story. I mean, a guy without empathy and compassion would be certainly a good researcher. Just let him be a researcher. Well, and as they are researching psychopathy more and more, they are starting to see that just because you're psychopathic doesn't mean you're violent, right? Like, there's this great, on YouTube, there's this really interesting, I won't play it, but there is a great little documentary series, Interviews with a Psychopath. This woman here, Ask a Psychopath, right? Like, her conversations are very interesting. She's a lawyer, right? And she just talks about her own life living as a psychopath and being diagnosed as a psychopath, and like what are some of the things that you've done because of your psychopathy. And like, she's never hurting people, right? She's not interested in that. But she doesn't have. Oh, I know. She just doesn't have empathy, right? And she describes how, like, an event would happen or something would occur, and when she was younger, she would get annoyed with her friends and family around her because they would be so emotional about it, right? And she just wouldn't. So she would just kind of get frustrated with the situation because why is everybody stopping? Like, why is everybody acting this way? Like, it seems so annoying. Like, let's get on with it. Let's move on. Right? Because if you don't have emotions, right, then you don't, or if you don't have empathy or compassion, then you don't really understand why are people freezing up here? Like, what's going on? Like, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going, right? Like, what's the problem, right? Yeah, if you're homeless, just buy a house. It's exactly mocked, right? If you're homeless, just buy a house. Like, why aren't more people? Why aren't these homeless people just buying houses? Like, come on. But like, what's annoying about that kind of statement, mocked, is that it is kind of getting to be where the conversation is. Like, it's getting to be that ludicrous, right? Oh, these homeless people should just get a job. Oh yeah, like, because that's the easiest thing in the world to do, right? And like, because businesses are really interested in hiring homeless people, right? And like, all the research is showing that like many homeless people do have jobs, right? It's just the rent's outrageous. Like, we're dealing with a culture that's gone psychopathic, and there's just no other way to describe it. Like, we're detached from reality. We don't really understand what's going on, and moreover, we don't care to know what's going on, right? Which is why the Conservative Party has any support whatsoever, and same with the Liberals. Like, we're genuinely disconnecting, and like this here, the PPC support. What's even scarier is that Pierre Poilievre is all the polls are showing that he's actually going to, has the ability to dramatically increase the CPC's pool of accessible voters, right? Which I've been saying all along. Like, and why? Because he's an extremely effective liar, right? But you look at in their survey, they're focused on Pierre Poilievre's campaign launch video where he said he was running for prime minister to give you back control of your own life, and discussed the rising cost of living and the need for government to be a servant, not a master. Of those who responded to the survey in English, 52% said they agreed with Poilievre's message, compared to 24% who disagreed. 24% said they neither agreed nor disagreed. Intensity of opinion was also positive. 23 strongly agreeing compared to 13 who strongly disagreed. Unsurprisingly, 79% of CPC voters agreed with Poilievre's message, right? 83% of PPC supporters agreed. So you think about the importance of that, right? Like, this 5% is largely coming from the Conservative base. And in a lot of these ridings where Liberals are beating Conservatives, it's by very, 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 very thin margins. And so if this PPC party remerges in any significant way with the Conservative Party, like, they're only like 30 or 40 seats away from seizing power, right? The flip can happen, especially, in 3 years' time after home buyers are totally fucked over, the emissions have gone skyrocketing back up. Like, the Liberals are a failure on essentially every front, right? Like, people are going to start taking a look at the Conservative Party and being like, well, why not? It's exactly what happened with the decline of the Liberals with post-Chrétien, right? People basically looked at Harper and were just like, why not? Like, I can't think of a reason not to put the Conservatives in. Like, and in many ways, the Liberals are to the right of the Conservatives. Like, we're getting really brutal. Dosage isn't the problem. I tried tea, 10 minutes. That's my usual. I've had lots. 5 grams a couple times. That's healthy. That's a good dose. I sat thinking in my kitchen the whole night. Oh, you gotta get out into the wilderness, dude. Like, that's the real truth of it. Like, because if what you did is you sat in the kitchen, right, you would have a nice think. I think that's what it would really come down to, right? No, you gotta get out into nature. I'd love to be an alien's pet. Ooh, depends on the alien, if you ask me. Maybe it has to do. Can you imagine your senses good? If you want to know more about Nerd, I'd tread lightly on the subject until you've read my thesis. Yeah, fair enough. Not all people with APSD are like that. It takes more than just lack of empathy to make stuff. Yeah. From the center capital accumulation at the forefront of this specific breed of psychopathy. Famita is getting real technical. Mina's getting real technical, which is fair, as our resident academic. Absolutely. Justin Trudeau's Liberals are returning to the miserable status quo. In spite of some concessions wrangled by the NDP, Canada's new budget reveals Trudeau's Liberals are returning to free market orthodoxy. The lessons of the pandemic have apparently taught the party nothing. In Canada, the Liberal government has tabled its 2022 budget, the second by Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Presented as a responsible, prudent plan, the budget does little to stray from market orthodoxy, offering policies focused on a handful of priorities, including dental care, housing, climate, and military spending. In her address to the House of Commons, Freeland cited a job boom, a drop in unemployment, and real GDP growth as evidence that Canada has come roaring back. In a remark reminiscent of Bill Clinton's 1996 State of the Union pronouncement that the era of big government is over, Freeland noted, "Our ability to spend is not infinite. The time for extraordinary COVID support is over." Declaring her party's intention to return to business as usual, Freeland affirmed that we will review and reduce government spending because that is the responsible thing to do. That means the Liberals are focusing on a declining debt-to-GDP ratio and shrinking deficits with an eye to paying down the debt. Understanding the budget as a faithful restoration of fiscal thrift provides a useful frame from which to unpack its details. In essence, a conservative plan. The budget contains a handful of progressive measures, including a signature policy for public dental care. The New Democratic Party, which has entered a supply and confidence arrangement with the government, fought for the program. It will do good for millions of Canadians despite its significant limitations, including a gradual phase-in for segments of the population, means testing, and co-pays for those making over $70,000. Even with dental care in the offing, the budget is fundamentally a conservative plan. It's rooted in the market orthodoxy of fiscal responsibility and corporate handouts. It's also committed to operating within the structural status quo of a market system struggling to meet major policy challenges across the country. On housing, the budget promises to boost stock with a rapid housing initiative and a housing accelerator fund. It also promises to double the first-time buyer's tax credit, as well as implement a tax-free first home savings account, a regressive, tax-deductible, tax-free in, tax-free out vehicle that will disproportionately help wealthy buyers. In a populist scapegoating gesture, the Liberals will prohibit foreign commercial enterprises and people who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents from acquiring non-recreational residential property in Canada for a period of 2 years. Of course, domestic speculative capital will no doubt scoop up any opportunities lost to foreign real estate investors. The budget fails to touch the financialization of housing in any meaningful way, even while it juices demand. It doesn't include an end to tax exemption on the scale of one's principal property or a plan to end speculation. It doesn't support the decommodification of housing or the mass building of public housing. It does promise a federal review of housing as an asset class in order to better understand the role of large corporate players in the market and the impact on Canadian renters and homeowners. In other words, the Liberals are committed to kicking the can down the road. However, there will be money provided to fund co-op housing and build 6,000 units. That's welcome, but it's not nearly enough to move the dial appreciably on non-market housing. Meanwhile, housing prices across the country continue to soar to an average of nearly $800,000, up 17% year over year in late 2020. The provision of 6,000 units of co-op housing is thin gruel in a country where, in the last 2 decades, housing costs have risen by 375%. Climate change remains an existential threat to humankind. The recent report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change found countries lagging on their climate commitments, with the globe on track to blow past the 1.5 degree of warming target, speeding along toward a devastating, destabilizing 3 degrees. The budget is peppered with climate initiatives of various promise, but it remains firmly rooted in a capitalist production-consumption cycle of extraction and waste. The Liberals have promised to extend incentives for zero-emissions vehicles and to feed cash into the private sector to secure the supply of critical minerals for, among other things, the batteries needed to manufacture these vehicles. The plan is rooted in maintaining an unsustainable car culture bound up with a mining industry that will contribute to more climate change. The budget also pours money into dubious carbon capture and sequestration schemes, the missile defense shield of climate technology. It's worth noting that the budget was delivered the day after the government approved the Bay du Nord deep water oil project, which is expected to yield roughly 300 million barrels of oil while in operation. Status quo restoration. The 2022 budget is firmly a status quo budget with a handful of welcome, insufficient offerings that fail to sufficiently grow public spending. Writing for the Broadbent Institute, senior policy advisor Andrew Jackson points out, federal program spending will be just above 15% of GDP after the special pandemic programs have expired and recovery takes hold. That compares to about 14% in the last year of the Stephen Harper government. Federal revenues have increased by just 0.5% of GDP over the same period. The Liberals are fond of using the debt-to-GDP ratio as a fiscal anchor to justify spending. That's perfectly fine. But it follows that using social program spending as a percentage of GDP is an equally reasonable way of assessing spending. And, on that measure, the Liberals are little better than the Conservatives they replaced. While social program spending is stagnant, military spending is up. The budget commits to $8 billion in new money for the armed forces. More military spending may be in the works as the country trends towards the NATO benchmark of 2% of GDP. Currently, military spending sits at 1.4% of GDP, heading toward 1.5%. Recent spending includes $19 billion for 65 new fighter jets. With Canada's focus on Arctic and cyber operations, the dislocations caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and rising securitization talks, this is unlikely to be the last increase the armed forces will see in the years to come. Canada's 2022 budget mobilizes familiar priority areas and familiar ways of navigating the policy challenges within them. The same mode of production, the same corporate handouts, the same modest social program spending. Deficit hawks may decry the bottom line spending total, tens of billions in new money, but as a percentage of GDP, the budget plan is modest, its methods orthodox. Moreover, with a promise of restraint, prudence, and a focus on reining in the deficit and debt, the specter of retrenchment is never far off. The budget is unlikely to solve any of the major policy challenges the country faces. Of course, few budgets can on their own. But this budget evinces no interest in putting the country on a course to upending the economic and social institutions that produce these challenges in the first place. Challenges that were brought into sharp focus by COVID. The lessons of the pandemic have apparently had no effect on Liberal policy. The party has tabled a status quo budget despite the persistence of problems that beg for something new. Like a full-scale revolution, like a full-scale revolt. Like, we're there. Like, I don't really know what it's going to take for us to recognize that, like, this is completely fraudulent, what we're doing. And meanwhile, in the chat, we have a really robust conversation going on about mental illnesses. BBT is often a misdiagnosis of poorly understood autism. Look at the stats. My specialization is in ADHD and autism. Oh, okay. Brilliant. The literature review of my thesis, posted in the Discord, has a lot of very interesting facts that I was even surprised about at the time of conducting my research. Oh, that's always interesting. When a researcher says, I was surprised by what I found, that's always intriguing. Republican lawmaker says homeless should look to Hitler for inspiration. He practiced his oratory and body language and how to connect with citizens, and then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books. Tennessee State Senator Frank Nicely said on Wednesday. Like, literally, guys, Republican lawmakers in the Republican Party are telling people that they should look to Hitler for inspiration. Like, when do you think they're just going to go full-blown Nazi? I feel like we should start taking bets. Don't you? Like, don't you feel like we should, like, have a betting pool? Like, when do you think it's going to happen? Like, what line should we draw? Like, what's the real line? Let's talk about that. Like, when can we look at the Republican Party and say, oh, this is just full-blown mask off, like, no, like, not even trying to care, like, just Nazism. Like, forget about fascism. Like, when can we actually say that what we're looking at is straight up Nazism? Like, they're already attacking trans rights issues, gay rights issues, civil rights issues, right? Abortion rights. Like, they're already attacking along all of the lines that the Nazis attacked on, right? Their climate change denial is already, like, a major existential threat for the entire species. Like, for real. When do we just start calling them the neo-Nazi party? Like, forget about Republican. Like, I there's nothing Republican about these guys. That's kind of over. Yeah. Post World War II, the U.S. was McCarthy anti-communism. It's like that meme. The U.S. is fascist, always has been. Yeah, but at least they had the good graces of you know, not outright telling people to praise Hitler. You know? Get ready for interest rates to rise very, very quickly. CIBC's Benjamin Tall. Benjamin Tall, Deputy Chief Economist of CIBC Capital Markets, talks with Financial Post's Larissa Harpern about the Bank of Canada's decision to raise interest rates by 0.5 percentage point and what lies ahead. Get ready for interest rates to rise very, very quickly. And yeah, they pretend like they're against neo-Nazis, yeah. And of course, the point of rising these interest rates is to collapse major sections of the economy, right? Like, rising interest rates is going to bankrupt huge sections of our economy. Like, people are simply not going to be able to pay off the debt. That, like, so if you've taken, like, you know, $100,000 out and you've been expecting the rate to be at, you know, 0.5%, and then they double it to 1%, and then and if it raises very, very quickly, like, we've seen an interest rate raise up to 10%. Like, that's happened. So people are just going to declare bankruptcy. Like, it's going, and of course this works for the corporate power structure, because when people go bankrupt, right? Well, that means that you can just buy up assets for cheap, right? So again, the rich get rich, the poor get poor, and that's what's being done instead of actually confronting the capitalist class yet again, right? And so we're being warned, we're being told by the chief economist of the CIBC, get ready for it, right? Get ready for it. And I don't see how this could be anything but a total disaster for Canada and Canada's economy. Adam Something is a prime example of a liberal who defaults to Nazism when it's foreign policies. I mean, I don't even think, like, just because Adam Something calls himself a liberal or a progressive or whatever, like, I think that guy's pretty far right conservative, right? And I mean, given his, like, overt Nazism, like, he never stopped being alt-right. 2027 is your guess? Oh, yeah. Help a brother out, Famita. How would liberals say fascist without saying fascist with as many words as possible? Canada is a rogue super emitter. Here's the graph, right? We're being outstripped by, I believe that's Britain and Turkey. Here's another graph down here that actually has the, was I right? Canada, New Zealand. Oh, well. And in fact, our emissions are rising, right? Here's a really good comprehensive graph. I know, buddy. I'm holding on to his little Kong that I put peanut butter into, and it's driving him crazy. You want to go get it? Go get it. There's no peanut butter in there, dude. So he's going to start whining at me, and then I'm going to have to go get smooth-brained right-winger. But you can see here, right, higher than the OECD average. And you can see here on each one of these charts, there's a decline in the amount of emissions that are happening. So they're showing you that the dotted line is the decrease since 2010, right? So the places that are higher than the average, so you look at a place like Luxembourg, and Luxembourg is higher, but it's actually had quite a lot of reduction, right? New Zealand's got a little reduction. Like, all of these places actually do have reduction, right? But Canada, this is climate pollution per person. As the chart shows, Canada emits 20 tons of carbon per person. That's twice as much as the Germans, 3 times as much as the British. More discouragingly, the chart also shows that Canada has been dragging its feet on reducing our oversized emissions per person. You can see this by looking at the dashed boxes that sit on top of most of the bars. These indicate reductions since 2010. Yob, yob, yob. The Canadian government likes to call itself a climate leader. A quick look at what our OECD peer nations have done, however, makes climate rogue seem far more appropriate. As these charts make clear, we consistently show up at the most polluting end of the rankings, both for how much climate harm we cause and for how shockingly little we've done to rein it in. We know what policies work to cut emissions. We know which technologies lower emissions and which ones make them worse. If we wanted to, Canada could make sizable reductions in our emissions by adopting the best practices proven to work in many of our peer nations. For example, we could adopt the United Kingdom's successful carbon budget law that's helped cut its emissions in half while ours went up. We could align our carbon pricing with our European peers to make polluters pay their fair share. We could adopt Norway's successful electric vehicle policies. Uh-oh. Okay, there you go. Milo literally just sat down on a cord and my screen went black. It's hilarious. That have led to 90% of its new car sales being powered by super clean, locally produced electricity versus just 5% here in Canada. We have lots of options. Being a rogue super emitter isn't the only one. And the Liberal Party is not doing anything about this. Like, literally, like, basically nothing. Comrade Milo, you got it. A proponent of necropolitics. I also see a lot of Eastern anarchists who support Nazism if they can use them for fighting Russian. Yeah, I've seen that a lot of that too. Where it's like, so what if we fund Nazis? They're killing Russians, right? Because like that's, there's no historical precedent for Nazis fighting Russians, right? Like, yeah, they always forget that Nazism will stab you or even their friend if it fits them. Like, it's because they've deluded themselves into believing that they're the ones controlling the Nazis. But that's not how it works. Like, you don't use Nazis. Nazis use you. That's the way it works. Right? Like, that every dollar you give a Nazi is a dollar that they will use to further their gains. And if your strategic alliance with them goes in line with what it is they want to achieve, then they'll go along with you. But as soon as there's a divergence, right? you'll be sitting there saying, well, let's have a negotiation about it. Let's resolve this peacefully. And they will just stab you, right? Because they're Nazis. It's how they work. It's how they are. It's who they are. It's what they do, right? If you actually think, oh, we're going to keep control of this thing, like we're going to keep control of these Nazis, no, you won't, right? And Nazis are very creative in their uses of violence. They know what to do in order to win the fight decisively, right? They're not going to like trickle it in. They're not going to like do something slight or little. Like they're going to show up to where you're most vulnerable, and they're going to attack you there, literally attack you there. So empowering this force and allowing them to achieve goals is backwards. It's a backwards way to think. And if you find that you are on the same side as Nazis, then you're on the wrong side. And that's just 100% true. Same thing is happening in the US with anarchists supporting Nazis. Yeah. It's all over the casual left forums I frequent, of course. No, and I think that's what it comes down to. Like we've somewhat like we've detached from reality. Like we think we're the good guys, and we're not. We must platform Nazis so we can address and implicitly debunk their arguments. David Packman. I mean, I've heard this argument. This is at least rooted in a form of rational thinking, right? That the liberal wants to believe that Nazis care if you debunk their arguments, right? Like that's actually what the Nazis are interested in, right? They don't care if you debunk their arguments. You understand? They actually don't care. They're more than happy to waste your time and to have a debate with you in order to frustrate and exhaust you. Because at the end of the day, they're going to show up and kill people. That's their ethos. That's their whole thing, right? So they don't care if you debunk their arguments, because what you're doing by platforming them is giving them a chance to recruit. And that's how Nazis view it. Like, Nazis are not having a conversation with you in order to convince you through persuasive argument of their position. They are going and being platformed as a recruitment drive to bolster their ranks and find people who agree with their central thesis, which is that white superiority is the way of it, and we're going to ethnically cleanse the society. And that position that they're taking, because that's like core to what it is to be a Nazi, that position that they're taking is not one that they feel they need to defend. That they see that as like it's like a religious ideological position, right? They see that as a righteous truth, that the white population has the right to cleanse the society, and will, right? And if you think that you're going to debate them like David Packman does, if you think you're going to defeat them with debate, you're dumb. Like, that's all. You're just dumb. It's very naive. It's a very naive position to take. That someone who is dedicating themselves to a path of violence in order to ethnically cleanse large sections of the society will suddenly have like a come to Jesus moment and be like, oh yeah, wait, whoa, you're right. That you can defeat these people with just a well-timed or well-placed argument, and that'll aha them. It's not what's happening. All you're doing is giving them an opportunity to tell other white supremacists and other Nazi types where to go to gather up in force. That's all you're doing. And like the Nazis themselves will tell you about this, right? You can go read the Nazi literature. They say out loud all the time in the literature that like liberals should not debate us. That if they actually wanted to defeat us, the only way to do it is to smash us. And that's the only way to deal with Nazis. It really is. Yeah, the only platform Nazis deserve has 13 steps, if you know what I mean. Yes, I do. I would say they would call them friends. Yeah, we have disagreements. You know, my friends across the aisle, we have disagreements on many issues, but we have disagreements about many issues, such as do black people have rights? But we need to find the positions of compromise where we can agree with one another, such as we should all remain really rich. So we, the ruling class, should all be wealthy and oppress the lower classes, and we could all agree on that, right? Yeah, absolutely. We all agree that we should all be rich. But should we publicly execute black people? These are the conversations that we are in disagreement with, right? That's essentially the conversation that happens between a liberal and these Republicans, if you want to call them that, or like these Nazis, right? This is the nature of the debate. And more, you're just starting to see that the liberals that exist throughout the United States don't really care about, you know, should black people or Hispanic people have rights? Should single mothers have rights? Should trans people or gay people have rights? Right? Like the liberals are more than willing to sell all of that out so long as they stay rich. Right? And as long as the Nazis say, yeah, you can be rich, they go, oh, okay, thank God. Then I'll completely capitulate along every single line. And we won't really fight back against that. Because I'm rich. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I really don't understand why so many anarchists ally themselves with fascists, since I'm an anarchist myself. It's because they're not really anarchists, dude. Like, they're just, like, a lot of anarchists are basically just, like, kids who are rebelling against their parents, right? Like, and I'm not trying to say that's what you are. I'm trying to say that that's what, like, the anarchism appeals to a very young mindset, right? It appeals to that kind of system, and then they get trapped into, like, all kinds of dumb shit, right? Like, they haven't overwhelmed their state bias, right? So if their own state does something in defense of something, then it's a natural good. This is why you have so many anarchists who are like NATO stans. They just love NATO. It's like, oh, okay. Does it have to do with the difference between anti-authority and anti-oppression as the different motives of anarchy, maybe? I really just think it comes down to, like, literally, like, deep within the human heart is this belief that my nation and the people around me are inherently good. Like, I really think that's what it comes down to. And, like, because I think anarchism as a movement oftentimes includes a very youthful, like, let's say, not particularly well-read group. And again, I'm not saying that's indicative of all anarchists, and I'm certainly not saying that people in the chat are like this, but I do think that there is a good deal of that within anarchism. And if you can't overwhelm your base sort of inclination that my own state and my own nation is inherently good, which is literally like what the United States says when it goes to war, right? And tons of people just go along with that. They're just like, yeah, we're inherently good. Like the argument that George W. Bush and the neocons used post-Iraq was like literally, like people like Sam Harris were literally like, yeah, our intentions are good. So, and like what evidence do we have to say that your intentions are good? Well, just that we're saying it, right? It's as simple as that. Like our intentions are good, and that's true because we say it, right? It's like literally no evidence to see that that's the case. The control and distribution of information, especially via pedagogy, is something that needs to be heavily scrutinized by leftists, methane. I mean, yeah. Skepticism is definitely an ally in a capitalist society. Trust but verify, yeah. I found your paper, I think. I'll give it a good read. Skimmed it. They're literal anarcho-capitalists, yeah. Well, I mean, like, and again, like, there's so much, like, just language futzing. Like, what really is the difference between an anarcho-capitalist and a libertarian? right? And so I feel like there's just like a lot of libertarianism in the conversation, but there are people on the left who don't want to call themselves libertarians because they see the Republican types and they're like, we don't want to ally ourselves with that, although we completely agree with everything they say, which is just destroy the government and let the corporations run the place, right? Like that's what anarcho-capitalism is, right? Just destroy the government and let the corporations run. I just don't like, so to pretend like that's actually like an anarchist position is really odd. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Yeah, I unironically support USA balkanization. I mean, what's John saying right now? Oh man, my brain is like feeling cooked, guys. My brain is feeling cooked. Emails won't show up. Okay. Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Look at this, Famita, making contacts in the chat. I love it. That's the way to do. That's the way to do, man. We gotta figure things out. We gotta ally up. We gotta spread stuff around. We gotta do stuff. We gotta do stuff. Yeah, not a breakout budget. No post-budget bump in support for liberals. Like no post-budget, but like yeah, like the budget came out and the response from the populace has largely just been meh, meh. This is a hilarious thing that's happening in the chat right here. Like, it's so obvious that the liberals don't care about the electorate. Like, it's so fucking obvious. Like, why are people still supporting or voting for liberals? I don't get it. Especially after this budget. Like, I don't really see the difference. You know what I mean? Like, what's the actual difference between liberals and conservatives? Like, what's the meaningful difference? Can anybody actually tell me? I don't see one. The ANCAP, I call them the faux anarchist because all they care about is to do capitalism harder, but without a government. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's Sam Cedar has a great series. There's lots of people who have done a good series about like play one game of Monopoly. That's all you got to do. Just play one game of Monopoly. You'll see exactly how incoherent it is, right? Like, and it's not like we don't have a functioning model of why this idea fails, right? It's called Monopoly. We've had it for a long time, right? Play one game of it, and like, it's like play one game of it and actually take it seriously. Like take the model seriously because it is a good model. Right? It was originally created as a critique of this very idea, right? Just let the free market decide. Just do capitalism harder. Well, what's the result of that? Well, the result of that is that eventually one person owns the whole system, right? So capitalism by design will fall into the hands of a small oligarchy initially, and then we would, and then very steadily, as the oligarchy collapses until eventually you just have a singular owner. So it's just straight up a system to decide who the dictator should be, right? It's just you're just doing it through financial domination and financial manipulation, than through some kind of democratic system, some kind of system of actual decision making. Right? And the idea that capitalism will result in anything other than this. And like, this is literally all I say to these libertarians and cap guys anymore. Just like literally play one game of Monopoly. Right? And what's the solution to this monopolization? Like, there really isn't one. Right? Like, you can't, because what you end up doing is you spend all your time trying to strike down these monopolies, right? But eventually they just start coming at such a rate, and you're simultaneously destroying the very institution you require in order to you're destroying the institution you need in order to prevent these monopolies from occurring in the first place, right? So like they're simultaneously saying we should destroy the government, and then when it comes time to actually deal with the problems that arise from that, well, you can't. Why? Because you've destroyed the very institution you need to do so. Like, it's and it's this kind of stuff that convinces me that we're gonna decline really quickly. Like it's not going to be like a slow thing. Like it's going to be a very, very fast decline, because the people who are forming up enough power to be able to actually seize power in this society have like already completely capitulated to the death cult. Like literally just do capitalism harder. Well, what do you think's going to happen here? Like, how do you think this actually goes? And of course they have just like childish arguments. Like their arguments are incredibly childish. Where if a corporation attempts to exploit people, people will just take their business elsewhere. Like that's literally not how it works. Like you can't take your business elsewhere. That's the whole idea of monopolization, right? The goal is to monopolize the market, and moreover, it's even bigger than a goal. It's an inevitability. It's an inevitability that that eventually the markets will be dominated by a couple of monopolies. And so this idea that you can just take your business elsewhere is childish. Like it's insipid. Like literally the people who are saying that need to stop participating in the conversation. Like that's how like stupid we're talking. You can't take your business elsewhere. Thanks to capitalists, we aren't doing so hot right now. Marx was right. The artisan slowly melts into the working class. Yeah. No, and I mean, and the reality is that it's a consumer-based economy, right? It's a consumer-based economy, and the amount of people who actually have enough wealth to consume is shrinking, right? That like a billionaire doesn't need to buy like 36 million pairs of pants, right? A billionaire doesn't need to buy 36 million televisions, right? A billionaire doesn't need to buy these things, and so they don't, right? So it reduces the economic purchasing power of your entire society. Like people who are just eking by can't actually contribute meaningfully to the society. And if there's no investment in your populace, right? If you use this like lame-brained, baby-brained conservative argument that says, well, I don't want to pay for someone else's whatever, or you should contribute to, like, for example, transit fees. Like, there should be no such thing as a transit fee on like a basic economic position. Like basic economics should tell you that there should be no such thing as a transit fee, right? Because what transit fees essentially are a tax on the poor, right? That's essentially what it ends up being. And this tax on the poor makes it more difficult for people to actually contribute meaningfully to the society, right? And if you eliminate the transit fee and allow free travel to occur, and you actually support your transit system with the dead, inert waste that exists at the top, then your society is actually capable of moving around and actually doing better. Like it's the same insipid argument that prevents conservatives from building transit lines. Even though for every dollar you invest in transit, you get $3 back. Right? For obvious reasons. You put a transit line somewhere, or someone wants to put a business there, right? People want to proliferate a business around this transit line, right? Like, you want to actually grow an economy, you want to actually, like, grow your society, you actually want things to be better, you should be investing in transit. It's absolutely the case. And then even better, these conservative types will get, so let's pick like just like garbage collection. This is a real clean one. I don't want to pay for someone else's garbage collection. Okay, so there's going to be trash in the streets, right? There's just going to be trash everywhere because people can't afford to pay for the garbage collection. And what do they say in response to that? Well, then we should fine those people. We should fine those people, is what they'll say in response to that. And when you actually walk them down that path, you realize that, oh, okay, so here's the outcome of that. So you're going to end up spending twice as much to fine these people with police services and then lawyers and then judges to enforce it all, right? And guess what? The streets will still be full of trash, right? And then you'll have a whole bunch of people saddled with money. And why are the streets filled with trash in the first place? Because these people can't afford it, right? So not only are your streets still going to be filled with trash, but now you're paying for a bureaucracy in order to further in-debt people who can't pay for the trash removal service in the first place. This is conservatism. This is modern conservatism. Like, it's as backwards as it can be. When they could spend half the amount, right? And the streets won't have any garbage on them. And this is the way it works for everything. I don't want to pay for someone else's education. Okay, well then everyone's going to be really stupid. You're just going to live in a very stupid society where nobody knows what's going on or nobody knows what's happening because nobody has their education paid for, right? Healthcare, right? I don't want to pay for someone else's healthcare. Okay, well then you're going to have a very sick society full of broken down people who aren't going to be able to contribute meaningfully to the society. Like, and it's again and again and again. It's the same argument over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, you steadily begin to realize that these conservatives don't want a good society. They want to do violence to other people, right? Because conservatism and Nazism are essentially hand in hand with one another at this point. Yeah, and in a world where 70% of jobs are fake, pointless work, makes sense. Yeah, unless you have capital, it's impossible to keep a business afloat, literally scraping by. Yeah. Freedom of movement, I asked. I had to get a certificate so our shipments come this year. Ugh. Yeah, don't stop making sense. Liberals won't get it. No, liberals won't get it anyway. Like, liberals won't get it anyway. Because so much of our ethos is cruelty, right? It's a culture of abandonment, right? That we've inverted our worldview. That we literally have created an economic argument that creates this idea that the best way to build an economy is to destroy the economy, right? Yeah, you see working class people saying the system works. Talk to small business owner about how well the system fucking works. Yeah. I mean, it's because we're in a game of Monopoly and we're getting at the end of it now, Famita. Like, the idea that there's, like, we're very steadily not going to have small business owners. Like, it's just not going to happen. That the distribution models are being monopolized by people like Amazon, right? Like, and like your communications network here in Canada are monopolized by the Robellis, Rogers Tell. Yeah, we were doing well, and then capitalism got capitalism. Now we're fucked, right? Like, that's the way of it. That's the way of it, man. Like, it's how the structure is worked. Yeah, I mean, everybody should care about somebody. Like, I am a fan of the idea that all businesses be structured as co-ops, right? So that everybody involved in the pursuit has collective interest, right? And, I mean, I never finished a game of Monopoly. It's just so much better to flip the board over. Everyone yells, you run off laughing, satisfies. And I mean, I actually think that that's probably what every single game of Monopoly I've ever played in my adult life, and it does happen. I literally just once it gets down to two people, I just say, like, if I'm one of the two people, I just say, do you want to call it? Do you want to call a draw? And if they say, like, no, I want to play it out, I always just go, okay, you win. Because I don't want to spend 2 hours rolling dice, right? And that's literally what happens at the end of every game of Monopoly. It's just 2 hours of rolling dice. And this is the thing, is that's the moment we're in now, right? That's the moment we're in now. We're in the moment where there's like only a couple of players in the game that matter, right? And they're just rolling their dice, right? Right? You're just rolling your dice. Waiting for someone to pick them up, waiting for someone to buy up, right? Why play Monopoly of seeing people make money when we do it in real life? Sadly, you can't win. Yeah. No, there's no winning. Like this is a fairly failed system, right? We're a business of three. How about to not be a business of three? Oh, Famita. Oh, Famita. It's hard to watch this decline. You know, it's hard to watch this decline. And I'm trying to like find my inner peace, or my inner Buddhist who says like attachment is the heart of all suffering, right? And so I try to create a detachment, you know. I try to observe things and report on them without that sense of attachment, but at the same time, it's just, what's so senseless about this moment that we're in, and what's so pointless and vicious, is that we've done it before. Like, we've done this before. We know exactly what to do. We know exactly how to avoid it. We know exactly how to move forward for the benefit of everybody. Like, we do. But we're just caught. We're trapped in this cycle of self-destruction. Yeah, it's not fair that because some of us don't have generational wealth, we are doomed to an eternity of mediocrity. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Well, and it's this individualistic idea, which is so childish, right? Like, one of the great successes of individualism as an ideology in our society is that it precludes the idea of generational wealth, right? Like, one of the great lies that's put forward by the individualists is that there is no such thing as intergenerational wealth, that everybody that is born and you all start at the same place, and it's completely false. Sorry to hear this, by the way, Cotton. All right, let's pick the number. I'm going with a 10. Mock.
Here we go for today's number.
Mock's invested.
It's April 14,
got a 7.
2022. 10 balls. Each ball has a number.
Amanda,
Numbers
good to
1
see you.
through 10.
Amanda silently in the background.
Swirl the numbers.
Listening in. 11. How dare you, Bumble Guppy? I hope it's a 1 now, just to smack you.
Pick a number.
Here we go. This is a 1.
Today's number is
Hey,
7.
Mocked, it's your number today, bud. Look at that. Mock knew it too. Right up here, eh? Mocked is basically saying, like, hey, guys, I understand that we're all having a pity party here, and we're all having a good cry, and we're all drinking a little bit and feeling bad about ourselves, but today's number is 7. So... Congratulations, Mocked. May the spirit of David Lynch content. I don't know, bro. This is coming in pretty late, content. Pretty late. Just like, if that's legit, congratulations, spirit of David Lynch, carry into your life. But if you're pulling the wool over my eyes, Barnabas, everybody's coming in with sevens now. I don't know. Well, I know that Mocked is legit. So, congratulations to you, Mocked, for sure. You guys down here. Yeah, redistribute the spirit of David Lynch. You know what? There is enough David Lynch for all of us. We can all enjoy David Lynch. Of course we can. There's nothing stopping us, right, from enjoying David Lynch. Good opportunity to remind you guys, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, hit the whistle, donate, right? If you got a buck jangling around your pocket, right? Think about sending that buck my way. I think I'm going to join you guys with a drink tonight. Because, yeah, you know what? Everybody's number is 7. Huh? How about that? You know what? But Barnabas, what's even funnier about this, dude, is that you picked a number. Barnabas up here being like 4. Turns around. 7. Cotton. You gotta let us know, dude. You gotta let us know. Did you draw legit? Was that legit? Was that just the time? Was that the time? Was it just a timing thing? Was it the chat delay? Or are you trying to grift us, content? This is important. This is the flag this is the hill that this chat will die upon. Oh, thanks, Bumbleguppy. I appreciate that, bud. That's very kind of you, bud. See, even $2 is so nice. Makes me feel real good. What a time, dude. What a time. I'm really feeling it today, dude. Like, I have projects to work on. I have audiobooks that I should be recording, and I just can't bring myself to do it. Like, why are we investing any? Oh, it's that's right. Bubblegum, I didn't even realize it. That you're Bumbleguppy's doing a buy-in. That's what he's doing, right? Mocked got it legit. But Barnabas obviously trying to do a sneak and go. Cotton, we don't know about you, but Bubbleguppy's literally just like, yeah, 7, $2. Come on, give me my goddamn 7. All right. Straight up buying in. Oh, I love it. See, there you go, guys. So that's another. If you miss the guess, right? And look, this is just as valuable as like NFTs and shit, right? This is just the same thing, right? So you too can buy the power of David Lynch and carry it into your life, right? Guppy is the lip bowl. It was legit. Fantastic, Cotton. Fantastic, bud. That may the energy of David Lynch carry into your life, bud. How beautiful, how wonderful. Fantastic. I needed that laugh, dude. Yeah, that's right. Just like and share and subscribe. Of course. So pivoting back. You know what, man? I'm just going to do the rapid fire. I'm going to do a rapid fire. Here we go. You guys are all drunk and high and shit today, I can tell. You're loosey-goosey, and I'm feeling like depressed and shitty. And so let's just do a rapid fire. Okay, here we go. Good. Right after the number pick. This is what I should do, because I always end the day with a whole bunch of links, and I didn't actually show them. And so now I think this is the thing that we're going to do. We're going to do the number draw, because there's always somebody in chat. Usually it's you, Mocked. Thank you. Bless your heart. Reminds us to do the number draw. So we do the number draw, and then let's do the number draw, and then we're going to clear the things. And then once we're cleared, then we can do the like world map, or do like a China walk, or do a walk around any place. I rather enjoyed. We walked around St. Louis recently, which was really nice. The KFC stadium, yum! That was the best. Okay, here we go. Expanded temporary foreign worker program still lacks protections, says Institute. Right? Like, the temporary foreign worker program is a slave system. It's how we get slaves into the society. We get second-class citizens. They come and do work for below minimum wage, right? And somebody is saying, yeah, we abuse them. Oh, Eric, thank you so much. Thank you so much. John, you never answered my question last night about if you would read my paper and then critique it to give idea for my doctorate. Also, tomorrow's going to be the last stream. Eric, did you put that paper on the Discord? Because I completely forgot, bud. But if you're going to donate $10 and with a comment like that, then I absolutely and tomorrow's the last stream you participate. I'll hit you tomorrow, dude, for sure. Here, in fact, let's go farther here. Guys having fun in the chat yesterday. You know what, bud? If you could do me a favor, just DM me. Just DM me with that paper. Like, send it in a direct message to me. And send it in a direct message to me. Once the stream's over, I'll give it a read, and I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, okay? Yeah, exactly. Hey, I'm not above it. Look, guys, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, if you want me to read stuff or look at stuff or do stuff and you give me money to do it, I'm going to do it. Like, that's life, baby. That's life. And Eric, thanks so much for your donation. I appreciate that. Right? And I for sure will do that after the stream and then talk to you about it tomorrow. And tomorrow's going to be your last stream, bud. I'm so sorry about that. But I know how it goes, bud. Life takes you away, right? Life takes you away. There's a couple of people who come in and out of this chat who are like that. Loaf, for example, he's been in and out. All right. Continuing with the rapid fire. Yeah, IPCC report, now or never if world is to stave off climate disaster. Right? I'm glad to see that The Guardian is actually working to report on this. Like, the fact that The Guardian actually gave that young lady who went on Britain Today or whatever space to write about the experience, I thought was really good of them. Because, like, we got to do something, man. Like, we got to fucking do something. Like, this is fucking getting dumb. This is getting dumb as shit. Our food system isn't ready for the climate crisis. Waka waka waka, right? Hey, have you noticed that we need food? Here we go. Oh, hey. Humanity has been warned many times about the looming food diversity crisis, a threat symbolized by the banana. When humans first encountered wild bananas in Southeast Asia, the fruit were filled with hard seeds, which made them largely inedible. Over thousands of years, humans and animals and Mother Nature selected, shared, and cultivated the best bananas, the biggest, tastiest, and easiest to eat, until eventually there were hundreds of different edible varieties across the world. One of them was the Gross Michael. It's probably like Gross Michael or something like that, but I'm going to call it the Gross Michael. Sweet, creamy, flavorful, and easy to grow with no seeds and a thick skin that made it easy to transport. By the early 1900s, it was the world's most popular banana, but every Gross Michael was a clone or genetically identical to each other, so a threat to one Gross Michael banana was a threat to all. In the early 1900s, a deadly soil fungus called Panama 1 spread throughout the world, and by 1950, the fungus had spread across commercial banana farms, almost wiping out the Gross Michael. The epidemic should have served as an important lesson. Cultivating and eating a variety of genetically diverse food would protect us from pests and diseases. Instead, the industry opted for a short-term fix by switching en masse to a genetically similar variety, the Cavendish. How's that for a name, fuck? Dude, the Cavendish. that is resistant to the fungus and is what most people eat today. But now, another related deadly fungus, Panama 4, is spreading fast, aided by higher temperatures and stronger tropical storms caused by global heating, and the world's favorite banana is once again under threat. As the earth warms, other crops may follow. Ugh. It's a huge-ass article. By the end of the century, the worst-case scenario for crop yield loss would be a disaster, but even the best-case scenario would be devastating for the world's most important crops. Right? So like maize, wheat, soybean, rice. You're looking at like 9 best-case scenarios. Negative 9%, negative 7%, negative 4, negative 3. Right? These are devastating numbers. These are fucking devastating numbers. The famines are going to be the worst part. I've been saying it for a long time. Like, the famines are going to be absolutely the worst part. This is a really big article, man. This is like no bullshit right here. I love it. That, like, my absolute favorite part about the conversation that's happening now is that you're seeing like really brilliant articles by like obvious like researchers and shit like this, right? So that the vast majority of people in our society can go, ah, like, for fuck's sake. Defense spending enough? Polls suggest most Canadians think government is spending enough on defense. Like, since when has any government cared what their people think? Right? Like, well, Western government. Like, our governments don't care what we think. They're going to spend a shit ton of money on defense. They're going to buy fighter jets and shit. Right? The Wall Street Journal makes the case for expropriating billionaires. The paper says redistributing the wealth of the 735 richest people would only give every single person $14,000. But that would be amazing. This is by Nathan J. Robinson. I'm actually going to read this one because, first of all, it's not very long. And also, I like Nathan J. Robinson. If I'm not mistaken, Nathan J. Robinson did this absolutely amazing takedown of... hold on, let's find out if this is true. The intellectual we deserve. One of the great takedowns of Jordan Peterson. Yeah, there he is, Nathan J. Robertson. Is this article that he wrote, where he basically just called Peterson out for being a fraud, and it's like just showing some of the graphs and some of the charts that Peterson uses. Yeah, how does one even address material like this? It can't be refuted. Are we ruled by a dragon of chaos? Is the dragon feminine? Does the state of preconsciousness paradise have a voluntary encounter with the unknown? Right? Anyway, the Wall Street Journal has a new editorial that makes a very compelling argument that we should seize the wealth of America's billionaires and give it to the poor. Of course, this is not what the Wall Street Journal thinks it is arguing. The editors are ostensibly making an argument that billionaires should be allowed to keep their wealth and that expropriation would be very silly and a useless idea. The article is called Eat the Rich? They're not even filling. The editor's argument is that all of the wealth of all of the billionaires, if seized and used for more socially beneficial purposes than vanity space travel, would not pay for what progressives want. They point out that the U.S. has 735 billionaires, with combined assets of $4.7 trillion. This sum is growing constantly, of course. Bezos alone accumulates over $200 million a day. Then they show that $407 trillion is insufficient to fund certain large government programs. What could the U.S. buy for $4.7 trillion? To start, it's barely enough to cover the Build Back Better agenda that Mr. Biden pitched last year. The BBB bill tried to game Congress's budget rules by phasing out programs early to lower the price. But if everything were made permanent, as Democrats intended, the cost would be $4.6 trillion over 10 years, according to an estimate by the Penn-Wharton budget model. Don't even consider Medicare for All, which analysts have pegged at something like $33 trillion over a decade. What about paying down the national debt, which West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin worries about? As of last Monday, the Treasury said debt held by the public is $23 trillion. In other words, all the assets of all American billionaires could pay off, or sorry, this is more, anyway, it doesn't matter. This also doesn't include the unfunded liabilities for promised benefits under Medicare and Social Security. Like, literally see how they're obfuscating. Like, before I move on with the argument, like, money spent in the economy, like, this is literally their argument, that money spent in an economy, which cycles repeatedly over and over again within the economy, is a waste of time. But money taken and given to a worthless billionaire that he sits on and hoards in a corner is not. Right? You see how that works? Like, if a billionaire has it and is doing nothing with it, that's good. But if we take the same amount of money and put it into a system that will then increase and grow because the money is going to circulate several times over and over and over again while maintaining a system, right? That's not going to work. But what if, they ask, we simply take everything from the billionaires and divvy it up? That would give every American about $14,000. You got to remember how detached the Wall Street Journal is, by the way. They think $14,000 is not a lot of money. Like, for me, $14,000 would be a life-changing amount of money. Like, if somebody gave me $14,000 right now and said, like, yeah, every year we'll give you $14,000, like, that's it for me. Like, food and shelter, we're good. Like, it happened. Like, let's expropriate the billionaire wealth. Like, alone. Like, if we took the wealth and redistributed it into the society, that would be life-changing. But the Wall Street Journal is so disconnected from reality and so barbaric and psychotic that they don't recognize that that's the case. The Wall Street Journal comments, if that sounds lower than you'd hoped, it's not, actually. It's because very large numbers are hard for humans to grasp intuitively. Obviously, well, I mean, the Wall Street Journal doesn't understand how economics works, so large numbers. Like, I love these kinds of comments because they're actually, like, very indicative, right? If that sounds lower than you hope, it's because very large numbers are hard for humans to grasp intuitively. No, Wall Street Journal, very large numbers are hard for you to grasp because you're actually very incompetent. In fact, personally, I think $14,000 sounds like quite a large sum of money for literally every American for ages 0 to 100 plus to get, especially when considering that it comes from only 735 people. That is a group approximately 1/4 the size of the population of North Pole, Alaska. You're saying that every one of us could have a $14,000 overnight from just the assets of this tiny group of people? Perhaps $14,000 is a pittance to the Wall Street Journal. This is, after all, the paper that once posed the question, is $30,000 a month too much to spend on wine? And whose Friday edition comes out with a grotesque real estate section literally called Mansion. But for about 1/4 of the country, 83 million people, that's more than their entire net worth. That is to say, with just the assets of this tiny group of people, you could radically transform tens of millions of human lives. People could get out from under the burden of debt. They could avoid eviction. They could afford to go to the doctor. We could do even more for people if we gave the billionaires money only to the poor, and could probably give everyone in the bottom 30% or so a sum large enough to make a down payment on a house and never have to fork over rent to the landlord again. I'm glad the Wall Street Journal has raised the possibility of just seizing all of these 735 people's assets and giving them out to the rest of us, because they have inadvertently shown that the social benefits of this would be colossal. When you consider that a small amount of money has much greater utility to someone with no money than someone with a lot, from a purely utilitarian standpoint, the policy is a no-brainer. But what about the Wall Street Journal's point that this money would not fund Medicare for all? The editorial board is trying to show the limits of what billionaires' wealth can buy in order to show that a robust welfare state is in fact extremely expensive, and a Scandinavian welfare state can't be funded by raiding Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and pals. As we've seen, that doesn't mean we shouldn't raid Musk and Bezos, because the journal's own hypothetical shows us that we should. But it does mean that the Wall Street Journal is right when it says that taxing the super rich alone will not pay for Medicare for all. The Journal says that Democrats say they only want to tax the rich, but progressives would be back soon enough for the doctors, lawyers, small business owners, and everyone else. Now I, for one, am perfectly fine with taxing wealthy lawyers and doctors, even if they aren't billionaires. But more importantly, the Journal here is pushing the classic right-wing insinuation that Medicare for all just takes your money without giving you anything in return. In fact, understanding Medicare for all is imposing a big new tax on you is deeply misleading. Medicare for all is better thought of as paying the government for health insurance rather than paying for for-profit employers. The price tag matters much less than how much people are spending on healthcare. A detailed explanation of how to think more sensibly about financing M4A is here. It doesn't matter that you can't fund M4A without taxing the middle class because the tax is a replacement for their insurance premiums. It's designed to save them money. You too will learn to love taxes when you see how taxes that fund good services can actually leave you with more money at the end of the day than you would have had otherwise. The Wall Street Journal draws attention, as usual, to the high taxes paid in Scandinavian countries without discussing the other side of the balance sheet, what the resident of those countries get for their money. In doing so, like all other right-wing ideologues, the Wall Street Journal misleads people into thinking about the issue irrationally, hiding the benefits and looking only at the costs. Interestingly, when it comes to issues like chopping down rainforests, the right are all about cost-benefit analysis. The one important point for Democrats to come from the Wall Street Journal editorial, however, is that they need to not act if the only new taxes they will ever impose will be on billionaires. Instead, they need to be honest about the fact that good social programs use tax money, but then repay it through the benefits they give people. To say we're only going to tax the rich is to implicitly adopt the right-wing stance that taxes on the middle class and working class are inherently unfair and parasitic, when in fact they are actually just a way of routing payments for services through the democratically elected state, rather than for-profit corporations that eat your money and are incentivized to give you as little as possible. So, the Wall Street Journal is correct that a welfare state requires more than mere expropriation of billionaires. It requires routing ordinary people's payments for certain services through the state via taxes rather than through private bureaucracies. The Journal is also right to observe, however, that if we did expropriate America's 735 billionaires, we could lift a staggering number of people out of poverty and transform their lives forever. We could also reduce the absurd concentration of power that has accumulated in the hands of billionaires, and thereby make our country vastly more democratic. Let us be grateful to the paper's editors for putting this proposal on the table and showing us the good it could do. What are you guys chatting about? Yeah, 14K is pocket change, don't you know? Yeah, exactly. Hold on. You guys are real chatty Cathys today, dude. Okay, I remember this. How could I forget? Good to remind me, too. Eric, did you send me the thing? You did. Fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna remember. John, add a little snippet of the bushcrafting department. Fantastic. John, you should play the TikTok I posted on the Discord today. Oh my god. So chatty. Everyone's so chatty. Dude, where's this TikTok? TikTok. TikTok. I can't find it. Is this it? No. Chatty Cathys. Is that it? No. Is that it? Is this it?
What do you Just Stop Oil protesters, what do you actually want to achieve? What's the purpose of your protests?
We are demanding that the UK government stop investing in new fossil fuel projects.
I've seen many scientific reports in my time. but nothing like this.
The IPCC Sixth Assessment Report, when I hear about these things, they terrify me as a 17-year-old.
Today's IPCC report is an atlas of human suffering and a damning indictment of failed climate leadership.
As a mum, I'm really, really saddened that you are terrified, because I don't believe there is anything to be terrified about.
Nearly half of humanity is living in the danger zone now. Many ecosystems are at the point of no return now.
I'm really angry at the people who've terrified you, because there has never been a better time to be alive than today.
Now is the time to accelerate the energy transition to a renewable energy future. Fossil fuels are a dead end.
I think in 50 years' time, when the world hasn't sort of, we're not living on deserts and all animal life hasn't dissolved and we're actually living really nice, happy lives, I think you'll go, gosh, that strange old lady on the radio was probably right and I was wrong.
And science tells us that will require the world to cut emissions by 45% by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050.
So you don't believe the IPCC, is that what you're saying?
It's not a question of believing them. Their statements are not backed up by enough fact to make them trustworthy.
According to current commitments, global emissions are set to increase almost 14% over the current decade. That spells catastrophe.
The world is warming. The world has been warmer previously. Whether or not it is a result entirely or partly or not at all of human beings.
Coal and other fossil fuels are choking humanity.
If you don't agree that we need an emergency response now, then...
We don't need an emergency response now, because it's not an emergency.
Delay means death. I take inspiration from all those on the front lines of the climate battle fighting back with solutions.
Julia, I know that you have a degree at Oxford University. I would have thought that you might have at least understood the IPCC report, to be honest.
I do understand it.
Now is the time to turn rage into action. Every fraction of a degree matters. Every voice can make a difference. And every second counts.
So until women like this, until people like this are in jail, until people like that are in jail, not being investigated, not being charged, not in trial, not fined, in prison cells where they spend the rest of their lives until the day they die, we do not believe that we are taking climate change seriously. Like, these people are demonic criminals. They are evil, psychopathic, detached from reality. They are attempting to destroy the species. And until they are incarcerated and in jail, we should not accept that we have even begun to confront the issue of climate change. That until people like that are in jail, we're in the decline. Like, we've got to get over this. Like, we've got to grow a pair. We've got to nut up. These people are psychopathic serial killers. They are attempting to murder even their own children. This is the only language to use for this now. This is the only rational position to take. If there was a murderous serial killer going around killing people in your society, you would expect nothing less. And anyone who told you otherwise, you would think would be disgusting and disgraceful. Like, I'm over it. The people who are defending this are psychotic. They've lost the thread completely. I will DM you. Also, my job is going to start again. I have to work at 4 a.m. No, I understand, bud. No, you don't need to tell me, dude. I understand. Life is how it is, Eric. Yeah, of course. Yeah, participate in the Discord as much as you can, bud. I want to stay connected. I want you to stay connected for sure. Like life is as it is. We got to do what we got to do. You know, we got to do what we got to do. I wish they'd stop making everything seedless. The pesticides get trapped under giant leaves, and the farmers move the leaves, and the pesticides will stir it up and inhaled. Oh, that's fun. Without bananas, what will America do for an excuse to dominate Central American countries? Don't worry, Grinning. We don't need an excuse to dominate Central American countries. Grinning. You think we need an excuse for that? Pfft, dude, we don't need an excuse. We'll just do it. It's who we are. I run a bush crafting club if anyone fears running out of food. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, if you're on the Discord, connect with Barnabas. Banana farming, new wave of colonialism. Yeah. My MP has never asked what I wanted. I mean, they're not going to. And again, like, if you want to interact with your MP, the only thing to do is to start getting in their face. Like, gather as many people as you can and start showing up in inconvenient places and doing inconvenient things. Like, inconvenience them in major ways. Like, get in their way, cause them problems, blockade them, and all of the other stuff that comes with that I won't say on the stream. Nathan Robinson, the socialist that hates employees. Oh, yes, he got caught up in that bit of a scandal. It's true. It's true. He's not practicing what he preaches. For those who aren't familiar, Nathan Robinson, I think he fired his own staff when they attempted to unionize. If I think that's correct. So it's like kind of it's true though. Like, it's like classic liberalism, right? Like, he's willing to throw stones, but he's not really willing to do anything about it. I heard the U.S. state of Indiana is debating whether to switch to Central Standard Time or stay Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, dude. Let's go. Let's just fucking go. Let's all decide. Let's pick, right? And let's just do it. Like, at this stage in the game, my expectations for our political classes are so low. Like, I have no expectations anymore, but I'm, like, literally willing to vote for somebody if they're like, yeah, we're just going to stop that. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, you. Like, might as well. Like, at least we'll get something out of it. Why do they need to change the time? Probably to make their workers work more or something. Yeah, the whole conversation doesn't even make sense for me. Yeah, how are they using that money now? How does it affect the rest of us? Absolutely methane. And the idea behind the time change was actually to make their workers work more. It was to get more work and have more hours in the working day, right? So that people could spend more time in the fields. That was the whole justification for it. They want to switch with Central Standard Time so it's easier to trade with states to the west. Fantastic. Yeah, 14K is pocket change, don't you know? Exactly. I would be just as happy if we took all the billionaires' money and just pile it up and burn it. Fine with me. Ending the system would provide a future. That's what I want. Well, and in a way, taking all the billionaires' money and piling it up and burning it, well, it would mean that that would be a big boon to savers. So if you had $10,000 in your bank account, and then we took all the billionaires' wealth and burnt it, it would deflate the economy in such a way so that your $10,000 would actually be worth more. It would increase your purchasing power. And because that's how it would actually work. That you're reducing the money supply, and so each individual dollar is actually worth more. So instead of going through an inflationary period, which is what we've experienced in this post-COVID world, because we printed a whole bunch of money and then didn't actually tax it out of the system, it would be the opposite. I just lose 14K on the reg. Yeah, look at me, money bags. Only capitalists get numbers, exactly. 30K isn't too much to spend on wine if you then distribute it off the backs of a truck to the poor wine enthusiasts. Yes. It's not a lot of money, but this is a conversation about the mass of money versus the velocity of money. We could change the laws and the billionaires would wither away even without expropriation. Yeah. Like, we literally could just pass a law and say, like, all wealth over $1 million is taxed away. It would be easy to do. Like, it actually would be. It would be very simple. And, like, yeah, and you're right, Grinning. Like, it's not actually about the mass of money, right? It's about what that money is being used for. That, like, a big mass of money sitting in a pile doing nothing, right, is worthless. And it doesn't actually matter how little amount the money would have on an individual impact kind of a way. Like, even though the Wall Street Journal says like 14,000 is not a lot, it's like, yeah, it is. Like $14,000 is a lot of money. I would gladly take that. That's like a life-changing amount of money for me. And but it's the velocity of it, right? Because if that money was actually in our system and actually moving and actually doing stuff and actually participating in the economy, that's infinitely more valuable. Like, infinitely more valuable in an almost immeasurable way to the idea that we should take that money and just jam it in a hole, which is what every single billionaire is. Like, so this whole conversation is like, it's so stupid because it really is like what's the value of a tool if you don't use it? Like, is a hammer, what is the value of a hammer, right? If you just put it on a shelf and look at it. And then if somebody says, hey, we've got all these nails to hammer, and you say, well, we can't use the hammer, so I'll just, use my fist, I guess, to try and like hammer in nails? Right? Well, how much more valuable would it be to you to take the hammer and actually use the hammer? Infinitely more valuable than just letting the hammer sit on the table. Right? Like, and this is the stupid nature of the conversation. We are literally having a conversation between, should we use the tool or not? Nah, just letting it sit on the table, that makes sense. Yeah, 14K is a lot of money to the majority of people. Those child laborers in sweatshops in Bangladesh make pennies. Yeah. Yeah, that's the objective statistical fact. Do you know how life-changing 14K would be a lot of people? Like 99.99% of them? Yeah. The Wall Street Journal doesn't understand that, though. I hate it when it jumps down like that. Technically, it's statistically insignificant how many people aren't poor. I think it's completely appropriate to say approximately 100% of people are poor, yeah. Oh, you want link the article? You got it, bud. Article, totally linked. You're welcome. Yeah, the rich make up like of the population. Colonization. Our culture is the opposite of capitalistic. Because of that, Bangladesh is destroyed, yeah? Bangladesh is rich, Somalia is rich, all these poor places are rich. Just ask the Rockefellers how rich the Appalachians, one of the poorest U.S. regions, are, yeah? Please check your privilege. Play nice. Play nice, Famita. Everybody's playing nice. Check your... I can't help but do that. I'm not trying to be insulting, but... Yeah, capitalism produces poverty, for sure. I gotta make my boss 1/5 my wage. Quit complaining, yeah. It was forced on us because of colonialism. Yeah, that's definitely tied into it. I feel funny. Well, I mean, it makes sense that methane would feel funny. Does methane get high on itself? I can never tell if it's a liberal talking or a conservative talking on these clips. Is there a difference? Since the value of the US dollar is based on the sale of oil, it's called the petrodollar, and so the USA has no serious intention of fighting climate change. Capitalism is a death cult. Good observation, Gunk. That's absolutely the case. Well, but what's going to happen on the international stage? And I haven't seen this argument put forward on paper yet. I'm looking around for it. But like, the value of the dollar is going to collapse soon, right? And it's going to collapse because most of the rest of the world is going to stop trading on the dollar, right? That, like, Hungary, for example, is willing to trade oil in rubles to Russia, right? And like, more and more countries are going to do that, and it's going to decline the value of the dollar in significant ways, and decline it in such a way that the United States is going to start to be incentivized to get off of this idea, to move away to something different. And so that could have kind of a cooling effect on how much exploitation of oil we actually want to invest in. Yeah, I saw that TikTok this morning. Kind of gave up for the day, to be honest. Yeah, welcome to my week, man. Welcome to my week. I was supposed to. I'm supposed to be doing audiobooks and stuff, and I literally am just like sitting, just like, it's like it's like the song Black Hole Sun, right? Like I'm just waiting for the wipeout. PSMLS class on Maoism is live. Thank you very much, Barnabas. Be sure to share that link in the Discord, bud. If capitalism worked, it wouldn't produce ubiquitous grinding poverty. Yeah, no kidding. Like 600,000 people in the United States are homeless, and we're supposed to believe that capitalism is working. While there's a model in China where they refuse to allow homelessness to exist. Like, yeah, capitalism's working all right. Petrodollar is such an important conceit for ordinary people to learn about what's really happening. Oh, dude, that nobody's going to take the time to learn that. Like, people really grapple with the idea of like money's not real, right? Like we spend all of our lives in pursuit of money, and it's not real. It's like people just can't get it. Well, we know, Famita. We know. That's why we're poking at you. That's why we're poking at you, dude. Everybody says things when they're drinking. I've had friends in the past who like really hold on to stuff. Like if a drunk person says something to them, they get really like, and they hang on to it, and they need big discussions about it, and they gotta unpack it. And literally, it's like, dude, like they were drunk. Like, don't believe the drunk person. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, of course they said something stupid. They're drunk. Like, that's I just wish that we were able to let things go a little bit easier in our society. Something I really admire my mom for is that she, like, you get into an argument with her and you can have a heated back and forth and all of this, and then and then she's happy to let bygones be bygones and just be like, okay, some things were said, but you know what? Let's just let it go. Let's just let it go, And I've always admired that about her. And she's always, even when I was a kid, she was always trying to find ways to find the peace, right? She would come up with fun little rituals. Like I'd have to grab my sister or my brother's hands and look at them. And she would make us say, you're my brother and I love you, please forgive me. And then he would have to say, you're my brother and I love you, please forgive me. And then we would hug. And the whole ritual was so fucking stupid. Like, the ritual itself was so goddamn stupid that by the end of it, we weren't even angry anymore. We were just like, oh my God. And like, we thought our mom was lame. And I think mom looked at us and was like, that's fine. You can think I'm lame, just as long as you're not fighting anymore. It's nice. Gritting, I have weed. Take this offering of peace. It's even worse than the billionaire's money than sitting there doing nothing. It's actively being used to drain what little the rest of us have left effectively. That's something that people don't actually consider. You're right about this, Methane, is that like not only is much of it inert and sitting there, but that they've erected entire economic systems in order to maintain that power and maintain that big pile of wealth, right? So they hire politicians, they hire journalists, they hire gaslighters and liars and con men and grifters, right? Entire institutions, right? Like the PragerU or the Fraser Institute are erected so that they can maintain this idea of wealth extraction, right? So there's like an entire false economy that is rested upon. So not only is it doing nothing, it's actually a negative drain on the society in significant ways. And like, why is society so chaotic right now? Because the billionaires want it to be. They're in favor of that. For future reference, I'm never being aggressive, I'm just autistic. I'm not easily offended. I don't know how to not sound aggressive. It's like just how I talk, I guess, but I'm just high and drunk as fuck. Femina, you're great, dude. John, did you ever watch the documentary from Right Wing Watch? Maybe? I don't... it was the documentary you put up. Yeah, I did, bud. Dude, that was a heavy one, dude. That was heavy. That was like a lot of information and a lot of very difficult facts. And I feel like I'm still chewing on that one, dude, because it was like, yeah, I can tell right now. I'm trying to, like, I'm going back into my memory banks, being like, what do I actually remember about that? And my brain is just like, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. I will also be your future. Your reference for interviews. Lying on resume is good. Yeah. Like, do everything you need to survive in this stupid society, guys. Like, you don't need to play by any rules. Like, why are we following any of these rules placed by these people? Like, I don't understand that. It'd be like looking at, like, Robin Hood. It'd be like, what? Well, Robin Hood should just play by the rules. Oh, Robin Hood, why doesn't he gather up with those merry men and go and start a business? Right? Start a small business and start a job. Right? He could become a productive member of society. And sure, Prince John will take some taxes, but you know, that's just the cost of doing business in a wider economy. Right? Like that's basically what I hear when I hear people saying, like, get a job. Right? Yep, I never saw anyone shoplift food, even when I did, especially when I did, yeah? Whatever benefits or progress liberals make will just lead them to new forms of exploitation. As working people have more money, they get new charges and price hikes, etc., yeah? Another point, not only is it a negative, but it lets them pick and choose winners and losers now. They have so much wealth and power concentrated. Yeah, that's right. And the entire structure of the system reinforces this, right? Like, when you're in school, how do you get the best grades? How do you ascend to the top? Right? That it's not simply being smart or being able to formulate things in the best way. It's by doing what you're told. Right? That you can actually be kind of dumb. Like, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to do what you're told and do it the best. Right? And so if you're in elementary school, high school, that's how you get the best grades. You do what you're told, right? And then when you do what you're told, you get to the best university because you do what you're told. And then when you're at university, you do what you're told. And that lets you graduate with the highest honors, right? And then you go to the best institution and continue doing what you're told, right? So the system itself is structured entirely by this wealthy class of psychopaths in order to vet for compliance and obedience, right? That you just have to do what you're told. And there's a book called The Banality of Evil. Bumbleguppy. The Banality of Evil, which interviewed Nazis post-World War II, trying to find out what is it that led these guys to being this insane, right? Like how did the Holocaust happen? And what they found out was actually quite horrifying. That it wasn't that the Germans they interviewed and the German society was full of people who were just like rapaciously anti-Jew, or were like salivating at this idea of destroying the Jews or the communists or anything like this. It's that they understood that the way to get ahead, to get the next promotion, to get the next thing, was to do these things, to do what they were told. Right? And that the banality of it, and this is why our society has become hyper-individualized, right? Because fundamentally we're being told that the way to succeed is to do what you're told. Get a job, right? Get a job. Sell yourself to the death cult, right? That's the best way to succeed. Do as you're told. And if you refuse to do what you're told, then that means there's something wrong with you, right? And as long as you do what you're told, then everything will work out. And even if doing what you're told means go and round up the Jews and exterminate them, well, this is how you get ahead. You just do what you're told, right? And so the greatest evil that exists in the society is compliance and obedience, especially in a moment when we need to rebel. The guy who made that documentary is making a new documentary to demonstrate how the Republican Party is really a neo-Nazi party. Looking forward to it. Oy. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it, but it sounds powerful. Sounds powerful. I did well in school, always good at doing what I was told. Now I'm pretty lost. Yeah, because they're not really teaching us how to do anything or what to do, right? Like what's one of the major complaints, right? Oh, like they didn't teach us how to do our taxes, right? They didn't teach us how to do any of that kind of stuff, right? Like, so they don't actually teach us anything in the 12 years that we're there, right? Like what do they actually teach us? Like so in my view, the reason why we're in these educational facilities is just to act as kind of babysitters, more or less. Just as like a cultural checkpoint. It's like prison for kids, right? That instead of kids being like out in the world, like forming little bands and forming little gangs or forming their own little alliances or creating their own stuff or doing their own stuff, right, out in the world, right? We've created like a little prison system for them. That's how I always viewed it. Like going and spending the vast majority of my life in this place that I hated to be at. It's a prison, completely. Like I always viewed it that way. I did very poorly in school because I never saw the point of it. Like it was always a complete waste of time from my perspective, and I still think that. Like I have a university degree, and I still think that. Like that the educational system exists to vet out non-compliance and to find the most obedient people so that they can do these horrible things. After I graduated university, my parting thoughts was, nice theory. I could have learned more on my own, but glad I got this paper that says I'm good to work. And that's just it, right? These institutions claim to be the checkbox, right? You've got the piece of paper. I mean, I've got my piece of paper. It's right there, right? You got the piece of paper. Nobody can take it away from you. It's an institution that's accredited you, right? But like, that's all it is, right? And how do you get the paper? You do what you're told. Like, do you actually know anything? And like, especially because, like, you think about economics, the field that I completely rag on. Like, all of these economics professors, like all of these guys in the field of quote-unquote economics, like these guys are frauds. They're just enormous frauds. And, one of my kids is naturally compliant to authority. I'm trying my hardest to keep him out of the military. Yee. Yeah. Ugh. I went into a community college with the explicit intention of learning what I needed to get paid doing web development. Left in the last semester making more money than I ever did. Then I got old, as we do. Oh well, as we do, Bumble, as we do. Yeah, the only course I ever took in my entire academic career, which was worth a goddamn at all, was I took a typing class in grade 9. It was one semester. The class literally was just like, sit down and we're going to run you through a bunch of like games, basically. They like gamified the typing. And for an entire semester, like a half hour a day, I just typed the game. And I got really good at typing. Like, and I think that's literally the only thing that I think was valuable the entire time that I was in that school. I shouldn't say I didn't find anything valuable. Like you do end up reading stuff, although they teach you to hate reading. Like that's one of the key designs of the system is to teach you how to hate reading, so that you won't, right? Because they can't have a society that actually reads or knows anything, right? They teach you to approach fitness exclusively through the lens of sport, so that you'll join their little fascist sport culture. What are other complete, like, I have zero respect for education in North America. That if somebody was educated in the North American system versus like the Indian or Chinese or Russian systems, like I will always choose the other guys because we literally only vet for compliance. And so we end up with just like morons, basically. Like, not to say they don't know their business, right? Not to say they couldn't like design something and make something and all that kind of stuff, but like, you know, we're just doing what fucking Musk tells us to do. So we're completely limited by the scope of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos' imagination. I failed typing twice, decided to give up, wrote code. See, to me, I thought about doing code. I took one coding class and immediately said to myself, I think I'll just hang myself instead. That if this is what my life became, I think I would just kill myself. Which, I mean, kind of is a shame because obviously if you were on the ground floor of coding, like that's a good place to be in terms of finances. But like, I just like literally looked at it and I found myself doing it. And after doing it for like a week, I thought to myself, yeah, I think I'll just kill myself. Like this, no. If this is what life was for me, if my life was waking up, going to a job, and doing this, I think I would just kill myself. So I didn't. I decided not to. I chose life. We had, and I really do admire people who can do coding. I really admire them. They're a special breed, man. There's something special going on there for sure. Because like, it's a language. It's its own language that is obviously powerful. So God bless those who do it. We had one typing class I think I took in grade 10, another general computer class in 11 or 12. Wasn't great. They taught Q basic, but I knew everything already. That's the worst, bud. The worst. The worst is when you got to take a course. Hey, Victini, how you doing, bud? The worst is when you take a course and you know everything already. That's the worst. And especially if it's a course where a presentation is mandatory. Like, I have taken a course. I remember I took a course. It was great. To get my degree, the scam that they play on people is that you have to take a bunch of courses that are completely unrelated to your degree, so that you and what they say is like, oh, so that you have a wide array of experience. It's like total bullshit. It's like an extra like couple $1,000s that they just steal from the from people, and you can tell that they've structured it this way because they've literally created courses so that the people who are not inclined in that direction can check the box. So like, to get my math credit in university, I took a class called Math in Art, which was total bullshit. It was an incredibly bullshit course. So they just stole my money, basically. Which, whatever. What else is new? Welcome to capitalism. And I remember there was one class where it was like a geology class, and I needed it for my science credit. And I walked into the class, and I sat down, and I listened. And then I went back to my dorm, and I just like watched a little bit of TV, and there happened to be an episode of The Magic School Bus. And I learned more from that episode of The Magic School Bus than I did in the like 2-hour seminar that I just listened to. And so I immediately was just like, oh, okay. So I like took the textbook that they gave me, I read it once, and I just never went back to the class. And then I just walked to the finals, did the finals, and got it. Because like, all it was like this textbook. Bleh. Just like put that textbook in your brain, have it come out of your mouth, or you like write it down, and then forget it. Which is exactly what I did. I think I can remember like sedimentary igneous magma. It's like sedimentary igneous. There's a type of rock that I'm completely missing. It's not magma. Magma is a whole other thing. Magma becomes igneous rock. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And that's just it. It doesn't fucking matter. Methane spaces or tabs. Answer carefully. I use the time to do the same programming as C. Oh, very good. 2 massive construction unions have announced their intention to negotiate for $15 an hour increases over 3 years. Expect strike mandates. Yeah, everybody should strike. Metamorphic oddity. That's exactly what it is. Metamorphic. Metamorphic! Everybody should go on strike. Like, and we should, like, for real, like, and the workers have got to stop demanding pittances. Like, stop saying, like, we're going to go on strike for a 0.2% increase over 23 years. Like, quit that shit. Like, literally, the conversation needs to begin sounding like this. We're going on strike to seize the means of production and chase you out of here. Like, you guys are frauds and thieves and liars. We're taking over the factory. Like, it's time to be done with this shit. Like, and that needs to happen across the entire society. Like, stop negotiating for nothing. Stop negotiating for pittances. Like, everybody, we need a mass general strike. Like, we're ruled by psychos. We're ruled by total psychos. And they are going to destroy us. Like, and it doesn't matter if you get your $15 an hour increase over 10 years if the whole fucking place burns down. All right? Okay, hold on. My dog's in a crisis. Crisis mode. Hey, Milo, come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That is the sound of my pug caught in an adorable little reverse sneeze. Isn't that right, buddy? You want some cheese, buddy? Have some cheese. Is that going to get you out of it? Is that going to get you out of it? You little snorty pig? You little snorty pig. Here, come here and see if we can get you on camera. He's a good boy. Yes. High five. Yeah, he's a good boy. Good boy, buddy. Good boy. Ugh. It so sucks for him, dude. He just gets caught in this, like... It's like a cycle, and he doesn't know how to get out of it, because he's very dumb. Yeah, exactly. We're going on strike to seize the means of production. This isn't a negotiation. We're just being polite to let you know. Exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah, this is great, this article here. Canadians too anxious about the future to enjoy the vibrant present, says economists. So, really strap in for some detached bullshit from a guy whose name is Tiff Macklem. Even as Canada's central bank was announcing its biggest rate increase in 20 years, headlines in the US were filled with warnings from the Bank of America about an impending recession shock. Certainly, Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem told reporters at Wednesday's news conference that there's plenty to worry about. Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine is causing enormous human suffering. Yeah, just blame everything on Russia, right? Forget about the like literal vampires who are sucking blood out of our society. The war has also introduced a major new source of uncertainty to the global outlook and is boosting already high inflation in many countries. Yeah, it's the inflation that's doing it, right? It's not the fact that they're just raising prices. U.S. inflation hit 8.5% this week. The COVID-19 pandemic has led to a simultaneous shortage of supply and unsatisfied demand. Shortages of oil and food from Russia and Ukraine are causing new price distortions. In an effort to crush inflationary expectations and to force us to spend less, Malcolm has launched what he says will be a series of rate hikes that will make all our loans more expensive. So is now the time to move to the bush and stock up on food? While some people will want to prepare for the worst case, interviews with people who have studied Canada's economic history, also lived through a lot of it, suggest we should take a moment to put things in historical context, right? See how they're gaslighting us? See how they're telling us, like, oh no, everything's fine. In a historical context, we're doing really great, right? We're the richest anybody's been in the history of the universe. No, Five Guys are the richest that we've been in the history of the universe, right? Said, this is why these economists are completely untrustworthy. Right? Oh, but we have $8 trillion. Yeah, forget about the fact that it's owned by Five Guys. That's in the society. It's trickling down. It's trickling down. Like, these guys are total frauds. It doesn't mean we necessarily stay that way, but right now, it's the best of times, right? Just completely ignore reality, right? These guys are religious acolytes. That's what they are. Cohen, who has been teaching at the University of Toronto like forever, has been thinking about why Canadians have been so gloomy lately, because we're all actually fucking poor. It's like we're climbing a wall of worry at this point, he said on the phone on Wednesday, right? Oh, it's the wall of worry. We're just worried about the future. It's not that 60% of Canadians are saying they can't pay the bills, right? It's the wall of worry, right? That's what's doing it. Because it's the only thing they can contemplate, because first of all, A, they're illiterate. They're not economists by any definition, right? They're religious acolytes who don't even read their own texts. They don't read Smith. They don't read Ricard. They don't read Marx, right? They're illiterate. And so the only thing that they can imagine is, well, people are just worried and getting worried about the things that are happening, right? Not the fact that their material conditions are degrading, right? It's like saying to somebody who's in a building that's currently collapsing, you know, he's just worried about the future. People's perception of the economy does seem to be way out of line with how bad things really are, says Nobel Prize winning economist. So every single time you hear Nobel Prize winning economist, right, that's completely fraudulent. There is no Nobel Prize for economics. They invented it. The capitalist class invented it. It's a prize that stands outside of the Nobel Committee, right? Like it would be like Oscar Mayer Wieners giving someone an award and calling it an Oscar. Paul Krugman, who's been wrong about literally everything he's ever said. Like, why? Who gives a shit about Paul Krugman? Like, an absolute failure of a human being. Krugman said he's seen polls of people in the U.S. convinced the country was losing jobs. Instead, the North American economy is at an all-time record low unemployment because that 2 hours you work is the same as a full-time job, right? It just, again, complete frauds, not interested in informing you of anything. The U.S. economist called that a media failure. Yeah, right? Like, the problem isn't the fact that I'm illiterate and don't know anything and don't want to communicate reality and facts to people. He also said that the U.S. self-identified conservatives were the ones most convinced the economy is in terrible shape. Worse than it was in 1980 when we had 8% unemployment and 14% inflation. Yeah, because they've been abandoned. What are you talking about? The places that have been abandoned the hardest are the conservative bastions, right? Bad things are often seen as more newsworthy than happy news. So while affordability and the cost of everyday living, housing in particular, are soaring, it isn't the whole story. Like, literally. Like, listen to this. Like, bad things are often seen as more newsworthy than happy news. So while affordability and the costs of everyday living, housing in particular, are soaring, it isn't the whole story. Oh, so, guys, everything's way more expensive, but me, Tiff Macklem, literally my name is Tiff Macklem, right? Soaring prices don't matter to a guy named Tiff Macklem, right? They don't fucking matter at all. Like, the prices could quadruple and he would just pay it because he's fucking the head of the Bank of Canada. Like, he doesn't care. He's detached from reality. These guys are walking around saying $14,000 isn't a lot of money, right? Like, get completely fucked. In Canada, the unemployment rate last Friday hit 5.3%. That's the lowest rate on record, and while that number is higher than the U.S. rate of 3.6%, a difference in the way the data is collected means those numbers are closer than they appear, which are both fraudulent, right? They literally just exclude people. Like, if you've stopped looking for work because it's not paying, they just exclude you, right? And that low rate of unemployment, like yabba, 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 wank, wank, wank. At the height of the pandemic, entry-level jobs plunged, Lang said, sending youth unemployment rocketing to 30%. But not anymore. You could almost say anyone who wants to work can work, Lang said. That includes what Lang describes at-risk youth, people with mental illness or other challenges. This is just bullshit. Like, it's just bullshit at this point. Like, these people are not interested in telling you even remotely anything near the truth. Lang said that for any young person, but essentially those at risk, getting on the unemployment ladder is life-changing in a way that not only helps them, but helps their families and the entire economy. Sell yourself to the death cult, right? We'll change your life. Just all you got to do is sell yourself to the death cult, right? Sell yourself to the system that's actively working to destroy you while we gaslight you and pretend like it's going to change your life. And it will change your life way for the worse, right? You'll lose all your time. You won't even have any money because all the money we deign to give you, you'll just pour into your rent, right? So you'll have no time. You'll be poor anyway. Commit. Tiff Macklem says so. Macklem made it very clear what a few hike rates will by no means strangle the booming job market or the wider economy, as the bank predicts a growth rate of 4.5%. Like, CD Canada report. Like, all of this is an enormous amount of bullshit, right? Like, the OECD economic forecast, right, has Canada as in a massive decline over the next 10 years, right? GDP per capita is 12% lower than OECD best performers. The poorest 20% of households earn 7.7% of total income. Like, these people are frauds. Like, unbelievable frauds. And, like, the fact that someone like Don Pittis at this point is just, like, putting on his blinders, completely ignoring, like, major reports being done by international bodies. We're again in a period of very rapid technological change and innovation, which makes us more productive and actually richer. That's a big deal. And one good reason to be optimistic. It's all a grift. It's an incredible grift to try to get people to buy into a dead system. Maybe fucking put somebody as the fucking head of the Bank of Canada whose name isn't fucking Tiff Macklem. Like, for real. You might as well just call him Rich Richardson. Like Richie Rich, for God's sakes. Yeah, innovation, that's what gets me. Innovation, how to extract our wealth faster, not in anything useful. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And in the meantime, Pierre Poilievre is going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada, which is just devastating. Just total devastation for Canada. Court documents reveal Johnson & Johnson injected black prisoners with asbestos in the 70s. Huh? We did it. Wealthiest property owners control 1/4 of residential real estate value. I can't imagine what's happening in the housing market. Oh yeah. Ukraine's US-backed mercenaries, imperialism's inward turn, the evolution of colonial violence. Right? Love it. America's highest earners and their taxes revealed. Where are we at? To make... here we go. I love these kinds of things. These are fun. First, for scale, this is the typical American's income compared to what it took to get to the top 5%. Right? Typical American $40,000 income, right? Top 5%, top 1%, right? How does that compare to people folks think is rich? Many billionaires didn't come close. Yeah. People like Warren Buffett simply avoid income, even as their wealth rises, right? Billionaires often use the buy, borrow, die method. They borrow against their wealth to avoid taxes. Then their estates are able to skirt taxes even after their deaths. Like, the whole system is about as fraudulent as it can get, right? Like, the whole system is as fraudulent as it can get. Yeah, here you go. Bloomberg had a 4% average tax rate. Like, are you kidding me? 4%? Like, are you kidding me? Get completely fucked. Like, get completely fucked. No, I am to the point now where I'm happy to say, like, we should expropriate these people's wealth. That not only would the expropriation of their wealth actually improve the quality of life for the vast majority of Americans, the exclusion of these psychopaths from the systems of power would be an enormous boon. Like, the amount of money that fucking Bloomberg spent on his presidential run, right, could have been used for literally anything. And in the meantime, why do you think nobody's doing anything about housing? Roughly 1/3 of cabinet ministers own rental real estate investment. Right? They don't want to do anything about it because they're benefiting from the system. Like, these people are the parasites. Biden's approval craters at 33%. Canadians pay more as corporations cash in. Yeah. See, just as the Bank of Canada is bullshitting us, oh, everything's great. Everything's great as long as you look at just the corporations. Pay no attention to what's going on with the populace. Like, who cares about the populace? They don't matter, right? And literally, that's what it is. Like, the populace doesn't matter, right? That we're an inconvenience. We're a liability. We're on the liability side of the ledger. Yeah, no one is going to fix housing. Oh, yeah. Conservatives target dissenters by attempting to revive foreign influence registry. Right? Are you or are you not a member of the Communist Party? Are you or are you not a member of the Chinese Communist Party? Right? When John, you said this thing one time about the Communist Party in China that sounded positive. So you're part of the foreign influence registry now. Right? Doesn't sound like something the fucking Nazis would do. Certainly not. Spot of good news. Spot of good news. Chicago Guaranteed Income Program will begin accepting applications this month. Here we go. Like, expect... I have been doing a lot of reporting on international news and federal news. But something that I think is actually a positive, and something that, I mean, it would be such a daunting task. I don't think I would have the ability to do it. But I do think there is a truth to this, which is that individual municipalities and individual cities and individual districts are really beginning to take it upon themselves that they, like, this is what we're talking about with the balkanization movement, right? That we're that people really are beginning to see that the federal structures are failing, right? And so they're turning to their municipal governments. And this is kind of evidence of this. That, look, we can't just do nothing, and our state government and our federal government aren't doing anything, right? And are in fact doing everything they can to make the problem worse. So we, the city, have to do something, right? And on that small level municipal politics kind of way, people can be much more influential, and that the go local movement is going to start taking over more and more, one hopes. And so here's a little sign of this. Here's a little sign of it. And then, of course, I've got two articles here. I'm out of time, but Revolutionary People's War, the experience in Rojava, and the current revolution taking place in Myanmar. The revolution in Rojava and the current revolution taking place in Myanmar has a big similarity among so many. They are made from the people, for the people. So, a little ways back, there was a coup that occurred in Myanmar. Myanmar is here, Burma, right? Of course, as you can see, right, there's China, Myanmar, China, Myanmar. And China's response to this has been, this is largely an internal issue, so they haven't been getting involved, which usually means that the coup government is actually somewhat favorable in the eyes of the Chinese. But this is, of course, yet the coup. The formation of the People's Defense Forces. Both experiences have have had their process ignored by the international media since they take place in the southeastern world. While the conflict between the hegemonic powers of Russia, Ukraine, NATO escalates, the people of these regions continue to resist the oppressive and inhumane offenses of their states. More than ever, it's necessary to bring out such a struggle and resistance to show support beyond solidarity. Yeah. Times are crazy out there, guys. And then, of course, an article, as rental prices have soared, social assistance for housing has barely budged. What can you rent in Toronto for $497 a month? I'll leave that with you guys while we all say goodnight to one another. It's always a pleasure, guys. It's always a pleasure. Eric, I'm going to read this article straight away. Be the first thing that I do. After I go get a drink, I think. I'm going to join you, Famita. You sound like you're having a good time. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the vain hope that you'll never realize it. And just stay the good little commodity that they need you to be. Revolt, rebel, repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.